And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It's Monday, January 28th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is my co-host, my son, Joe Hagmann. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased, uncensored news, analysis, and information you need to know in these perilous times in which we live. We broadcast each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us. Our home base, of course, is on the internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. Folks, I urge everyone to go there as well. Tonight, there's an article up there tonight about our guest. We're going to have a guest tomorrow, and that is going to be Larry Grathwohl. But in the promotion, it's really not a promotion for tomorrow night. It's a piece of information about Mr. William Ayers and about the education system here in our country. But before we get into the news, we have a ton of news to get into. Joe, just want to say welcome to the studio this evening again. It's like you never left, right?
Right, that's right.
It's we've been putting in overtime, so a lot of information to get to, a lot of news.
Yeah, we both did a lot of research, independent research today on different things, and I know you got some things that you wanted to talk about. You were looking into.
Yeah, so something, folks, just set the stage for something. And what did you name the program tonight, Joe?
Oh, my goodness. Mind control and more.
Yes. This is something that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about an issue about mind control. Now, as strange and as far out and as whacked out and as crazy as that topic might seem to you, with much thanks to a very good friend who's in the intelligence world, brought this to my attention, basically our attention, and the mind control aspect of things that are taking place in this country.
It goes well above and beyond what anybody really thinks unless they do research on the subject.
I'll tell you,
from the origins to the results. And it has biblical implications on us.
Well, I'll tell you what, I need a roll of duct tape to keep my head together because and this is not going to be one program that we're going to do this. We're going to be doing this over a series of programs because there are things involved in mind control.
We can see it in the rhetoric from people around us, our family, friends, the people who constantly repeat, talking points on the news. Those are small examples of the programming that's being done.
Just to give you an idea of how deep this goes.
Yeah, and the way I'm talking about is like a soft mind control where you choose to watch TV, you choose to, your behaviors, your actions, what you're going to do. And what you were looking into is the overt, intentional control of specific people for specific reasons.
Well, yes. Now, once again, just to lay the groundwork, the foundation. This is we're working on this in a number of different from a number of different angles. But just to give you folks, give me an idea of what's taking place here, and kind of to lay the foundation for future programs. When I say future programs, I'm talking about throughout this week, next week. But we have to get this exposed, and we have to do this because this is so critical that we could be looking at a global 9/11. Okay, This touches this mind control, this MK Ultra, or origination within MK Ultra, if you will, goes as far back as the early 1900s. I mean, we're talking about the film The Wizard of Oz, for example. And you might think, well, huh? Wait, what? Wizard of Oz? Yes. We're talking about situations, and I really don't want to get too deep down into the avenues here because it's not going to make a lot of sense. This is just going to kind of give you a heads up of how deep, how vast, how widespread this is. But everything from the Wizard of Oz to the creation of, if you will, cutouts through mind control, through experimentation, through things that the Nazis did in World War II, to things that Hollywood's doing today, to things that are taking place right in front of our faces. This affects everything from, and I'll say from the JFK assassination. It has its tentacles there, in the Martin Luther King assassination, in the RFK assassination, into Oklahoma City, and into 9/11, and even into the Sandy Hook school shooting. There are common threads of mind control that we're looking at. And when I first started yanking on this thread, what came out of this pinata, if you will, were things that I'd never expected. And all of a sudden you've got all of these pieces everywhere. And seemingly unrelated, but I got to tell you, they're definitely related, and there's things that are taking place today that are, well, I don't know how many people have watched in the past the movie, the original now, Manchurian Candidate. If you haven't watched that movie, Manchurian Candidate, the original one, and if you have the ability to do so, I'd suggest you do it sometime in the short term. You will understand why once you do. If you've got a couple of hours of free time and you've got the ability to do it, I don't know, if Netflix or I don't know, if you can rent the movie or how I would, or you can maybe even find it online, but it would be well worth your time. This touches everything. This is a common thread. This is something that we really have to talk about, and I'm in the process of lining up some guests that were in the thick of things, including perhaps some people associated with the Unabomber, because the Unabomber is part of this as well.
Just to lay some groundwork here, so people know we're not, just talking about some theory or anything. There have been congressional inquiries. There have been hearings. The Church Committee, it was a Senate group that held an inquiry.
They identified MK Ultra.
Right. This is documented fact, and there have been lawsuits that have been paid out on behalf of victims of these unwilling participants of the MK Ultra project in America.
And in fact, there's one right now, a lawsuit pending right now, 50 years after an incident that took place by the family members of a victim of these mind control experiments. This is something that is taking, like I said, it's taking place right in front of our noses. Now, one thing you've heard me mention in the past, I'm fairly certain, of a gentleman by the name, a program in Toronto every Saturday night. Now, the time is different. Last Saturday, I believe the program began at 11 o'clock. It's a 3.5-hour program. It's called A View from Space. It's on Toronto, 6:40 a.m. This past week, the host, Gary Bell, began talking about mind control. Now, this is the reason I mention that is because it was almost serendipitous in terms of the research we've been doing with respect to Benghazi and Sandy Hook, because there are elements of commonalities here. ultimately to one of the goals here is to disarm America. Obviously, we talk about the gun grab. Well, when you start poking at the gun grab, the gun confiscation, where does this come from? Well, you start following things backwards. And I know this is a little bit difficult. It sounds a little bit kind of a shotgun approach here I'm giving you, but just to give you an overview here, all of this is related. This is all connected to various government operations. But we're going to bring in some people, hopefully, if we can arrange these interviews, of people that are directly connected to or have been affected by MKUltra. And folks, you people who have listened to our program before, we interviewed Rosalind Mangan, Sirhan researcher extraordinaire. Now, she had conducted numerous interviews with Sirhan. In fact, she got to know Charles Manson while doing the interviews with Sirhan. But the reason I bring this up is because Sirhan, if you remember the circumstances with the RFK assassination, the girl in the polka dot dress, this comes into play, the visual stimuli, the visual signal, and it goes back to, like I mentioned before, the movie Manchurian Candidate. These are things that we're looking at, and I know it sounds so extraordinary, it's so out of the ordinary, but it's happening right in front of our very eyes. And this is something that is tangible, that we can actually touch and say, look, this is taking place. And once again, the gun grab is a big part of this. Remember 1995, Eric Holder. Remember what he said in 1995?
We need to brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Exactly. Exactly. If you think, folks, that was an accidental or just an offhanded comment, that's not correct. When he says brainwash, we are talking about a systematic brainwashing, changing the way Americans think about various things, including but not limited to the Second Amendment and gun possession. To give you even kind of a similar example as well, think about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, watching a movie, or even in real life, you're in a meeting at your place of employment. What do you have on the table next to you? You've got an ashtray. What do you have next to the elevators? You've got ashtrays. All of a sudden, in the course of 20 years, 2 decades now, the thinking for smoking, for example, has been totally changed. It's a deliberate demonization of, well, in this case, kind of a bad habit. But the principle is the same in a lot of respects. But this brainwashing, that's a key statement made by Holder, and that was not accidental. So, I mean, we've got this very large project here that we're connecting some dots, and in the end, when you see where these dots all lead and how these all these stack up, you're going to realize, and I think, and I'm coming to the point where I'm realizing, hey, wait a minute, all of this has been one huge psyop, one huge mind control situation. And I know that just touching on this is not doing it justice, but again, I'm just trying to lay the foundation here for the direction in which we're headed. These are things too, by the way, that you can that are clear, they're evident, they're overt. Most of them, some are not, some are more subtle. But when you see where this leads and who's behind it and the intended result, holy cow, you'll see that we have been lied to, and we're being lied to, and we're being controlled and manipulated in ways which you never would think ever we would be controlled and manipulated. So this is how important this is. And the reason I mentioned the Saturday program from A View from Space from Gary Bell is if you have the opportunity to listen to that, he lays some groundwork as well. Again, it was more serendipitous than it's we're not working off of each other. It just happened to be he was talking about this as it relates to Sandy. I believe it was Sandy Hook, and this is kind of how the same way we got into it, as well as some other things relating to the actual origin of the film Innocence of Muslims that started that was blamed for the Benghazi situation, or the hostility or the murders in Benghazi. So these are different. I mean, this is how this is how it started. This is people often ask, well, how did you get on this when you were looking at that? Well, that's how. I mean, it just kind of it was just kind of a serendipitous event. But if you, like I said, if you do have the opportunity, I don't know where you can download MP3s from A View from Space, but if you can grab a hold of it, certainly do so and listen to Last Saturday. That's one thing I want to say. But we've got a ton of other news, and there's one other thing here with respect to the MK Ultra mind control situation. I will talk about later on during the program. I think you'll find it extremely interesting. But it'll kind of give that context, give what we're talking about some context as well. So, with that, let's get into what's taking place here that we need to talk about.
Okay. Yeah.
Holy cow!
We do have a lot of news. First off, we'll start with the drills, the unannounced helicopter drills happening in Miami, and where else was there? You said
Houston, Los Angeles.
Yeah, Houston is today, and I'll post Houston in the chat room. We have now it says, "Do you see or hear helicopters?" This is the title. Army training exercise happening on Houston South Side. This is from today. Sky I-13 HD was over the south side, where at first look it appeared that there was a massive SWAT scene happening. People have been calling police as well as our newsroom saying they're hearing gunshots in the area of Scott and Airport Road. It turns out the Army says it's multi-agency training drill that they're doing at the old Carnegie High School. Helicopters were also involved, but the Army isn't giving any details of what the training is about. So if you see the helicopters or hear gunfire, it's only a drill. The article ends with. And there's a video there that shows...
now, what in the world would cause, or, ladies and gentlemen, let me ask this, and Joe and I were talking about this. If you live in Miami, if you live in Houston, if you live in L.A., it doesn't matter where you live, and you see Black Hawk helicopters or military helicopters going down your interstate or your inner city, and you hear the gunfire, which are blanks, but supposedly blanks or whatever, one has to ask. Any reasonable human being would ask, what's going on? Why do we have our military allegedly practicing, doing drills with the police department in urban areas?
Yeah, and this has happened on several different occasions in just the last week. And these are classified drills. They're working with Black Hawk helicopters. They are working in multiple cities, doing unannounced exercises. And we see this happening on from a news perspective, as they're not happening here. But I got to tell you what, I'm outside and I see a helicopter flying low, looking like they're shooting at me. It's not impossible for somebody to want to return fire. Even though these are drills, they're unannounced drills. The military technically doesn't have the authority to conduct any drills on American soil. They have their own Army bases for that. They have their own, training facilities for that. Why are they conducting assaults, not mock assaults, on major metropolitan cities?
Well, and I think what we need to ask too, or we need to look at as well. Remember when Obama had taken Air Force One very close or very low in New York City and caused all sorts of trouble or all sorts of panic unnecessarily when down in southern Manhattan. This is about a year and a half ago, and it was allegedly for a photo op. That was the story. Okay, now I suspect that there's something more to that. Of course, more of perhaps more of a litmus test or a beta test, if you will, for the reaction, to gauge a reaction. I do believe these drills that we're seeing right now are fairly close to the same. You're looking at a situation where these drills are being done without notification to, or with very little advance notification to the general population. In most cases, the general population does not hear or is not privy to any type of announcement, and all of a sudden they see what appears to be some sort of gun battle or some sort of assault taking place. This is something that it has nothing to do, in my view, with any type of training, legitimate training, but it's got a lot to do with the conditioning of people, and it's not about security, it's not about training, it's about conditioning, it's about getting people to used to seeing military assets flying low and flying in urban areas. There's no legitimate reason, regardless of what the media might say or what the military might say, for such training to take place. It's totally out of the norm.
Yeah, I do have an audio from the local Miami news we can play.
Let's do that.
It starts off with the Bill O'Reilly, for whatever reason. It starts off with a Bill O'Reilly clip of the economy that I don't think you might have heard it. I don't know if you were on the show when we played it. Yes. Okay, well, it starts off with that clip, then goes into the news, for whatever reason.
Well, let's go ahead and play it. Understand the Bill O'Reilly clip is really not a segue, so but go ahead and let's play the clip.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly reporting tonight from South Florida. Thanks for watching us. Are we the people responsible for the chaos that is enveloping America? That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. The folks are indeed responsible for the government they get. Germans could have thrown Hitler out. They did not. Russians fought hard for Stalin. The Chinese surrendered to Mao. The Cubans allowed Fidel Castro to take away their liberty. The folks are responsible. Yesterday, the Government Accountability Office, the nonpartisan investigative arm of Congress, released its annual audit of the U.S. government. The report covers the fiscal years 2011 and 12. The conclusion of the report is this, quote, absent policy changes, the federal government continues to face an unsustainable fiscal path. Let me repeat that. Absent policy changes, the federal government continues to face an unsustainable fiscal path. If the feds do not stop the wild spending and do not reform Medicare and Social Security, the U.S. dollar will collapse. That means that all of our savings, all of our investments, our homes, and everything else will blow up before our eyes.
Just in, a military drill in downtown Miami, complete with these Black Hawk helicopters, elite soldiers, and police officers swarming the streets. It's kind of scary when you suddenly look up and see that, but it's all about being prepared for the unknown of urban combat.
And if you came across that scene that you just saw tonight, well, it likely left you in awe. Local 10 photographers, along with reporter Christina Vasquez, were there to witness it all. Christina.
In awe, and as you mentioned, it can be quite alarming. We counted them, 7 Black Hawks thundered across downtown Miami. And we're going to take a pause here so you can listen in, so you can appreciate what it sounded like to be there. A rare sight indeed to see these Black Hawks weaving in between downtown Miami buildings. And what I can tell you, what we know is that this was a joint military drill with the Department of Defense and Miami-Dade County Police. The rest, we are told, is classified, but for being a secret operation, it was certainly conducted, as you see, in such a public way, in full public view, as they made their way from downtown Miami over to Marlins Park and then roared right back. I can tell you that a similar drill was conducted on Tuesday night. I know that because I saw it firsthand. I was actually, as you watch the images from tonight, on Tuesday night, I was on the MacArthur Causeway with my husband as we saw, once again, 7 Blackhawks coming toward us, heading for the beach. And what really caught our eye is how low they were flying. I mean, they were just hovering right above the causeway. It's certainly something you do not see every day. At the time, we actually thought perhaps it was a movie shoot. Coming back out here live, I'm certain a lot of the folks that were in that area, as they saw that, maybe that's also what they thought it was, but it was, as once again we are told, a joint military drill. We asked all the questions you might imagine about what was conducted today, but we are told, Lori and Calvin, that all of that information cannot be released to the public.
And any indication, Christina, if we'll see this again tomorrow night or through the weekend?
Classified. Classified. There's a reason why they do that. You know, there's a reason why they do that. We're sharing these images with you because no doubt there were people in the buildings, on the streets, taking a look at that. And we want to make sure you understand what was happening. But there's, importanance on their end to make sure that information does remain secret. So this is a drill, as you said, Lori, to keep us all safe.
That's right. Well, impressive and disturbing, depending on what you're watching on television as well. So you got to add that. Christina, thanks a lot for that.
Well, no. So there you have it. All right, we're getting reports of movie-like activity, folks. Is there any legitimate reason why the citizens of the United States should be subjected to this kind of activity, this kind of training exercises? And my contention is no. So we have to look for different reasons for this.
First of all, the first red flag, unannounced. Second red flag, military personnel on American soil.
That's correct.
Third red flag, the biggest one of all, it's classified. Why would it be classified? What they're training for. Why would it be classified if it is, they make public their preparedness for mass shooters. They make public their extremist lexicon that name every single person who loves any freedom in this country as an enemy. Why are these being classified?
Well, and I think, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have to look at this in a logical manner and ask ourselves, okay, number one, what do they know that we don't know? Is that something is that the case?
Yeah.
Or what are they planning for?
Right. The same difference. And
no, not quite, because if they know, for example, if
they know they're going to be conducting a real assault soon,
but not on Americans, we'll say on some invading force.
On Americans.
Well, right, but
this could be a form of conditioning for the people to just get used to it.
Right, but my point is this.
You're going to wait until you find out if the bullets they're firing or blanks are real before people start firing back?
No. But I'm speaking to the larger question here, Joe. The larger question is this: what are they doing this for? Do they know something that we don't know? That they could be repelling some sort of invasionary force from wherever?
No.
Or is this against Americans?
No. These people know exactly what they're doing. This is the New World Order. Any imaginary force that comes in is with their knowledge and consent. And they could have stopped it well before it started. And they know that. We know that. And how it's going to play out is the only thing that's left to ask.
But, no, it's left to ask. What needs to be answered is what are they doing? Why are they doing this? Why? Answer that question, and then we'll know. You've got to answer the question: what are these drills? Why are they doing these drills? Is it against Americans? Is it to be used against Americans?
Yep.
Okay. Now,
no doubt in my mind.
No doubt in your mind, but that's a supposition.
At some point in time, yes, it'll be used against Americans. We have a collapsing, unsustainable economy.
Right.
We have a tyrannical government that has more than half the people okay with it, what they're doing, not understanding the implications of the end game of their plan. And we have who are left? The people who won't go along with it. Yeah, they're doing it. When they put out, these U.S. internment and resettlement PDFs, the psychological warfare PDFs from the military and the government, talking about how they're, going to pretty much take any detainee, terrorist, or displaced citizen and move them to where they want to based on international laws. Yeah, they know what they're doing. They're planning on taking out the people that pose a threat. That's why they're going after the guns. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security is seeking to buy 7,000 of the personal defense weapons. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, these are anti-tyranny weapons, actually, but we, of course, cannot have these evil black rifles. However, DHS is... Is
it because they're black?
It's because...
I saw it when they signed, somebody at a protest had a black AR-15, and underneath it said, "Is it because I'm black?" I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can put little pink tassels on the barrels of the AR-15s and make them not so scary then. But when you start combining all of this, when you have attack helicopters letting loose with machine gun fire over Miami, and then you've got the DHS, rounding or purchasing another 7,000 evil black rifles, shall we say, or these rifles, when in fact, they of course want to keep them from us. We have to ask ourselves, is it on now? I mean, are we seeing the beginnings of what's coming, of a second World War or second Civil War?
Yeah.
Is this what we're looking at?
Yep. I mean, go back to the inauguration and the Lincoln comparison. I've been thinking a lot about this, doing some research on it. Lincoln led us through a Civil War, and he started the Civil War, led us through the Civil War. He was assassinated. On the other hand, this could be the antithesis of Lincoln, starting a Civil War to put people back into slavery under the government control.
Well, and this does, by the way, speak to tomorrow's program when we're having to have Larry Grathwall on, who did infiltrate the Weather Underground back, and of course, Weather Underground. We know this Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dohrn, very close friends and confidants of Obama. Their plan, of course, is to overthrow the United States, replace it with the communist system, and of course, exterminate those who don't go along with the system. So, talking about killing. At that time, 25 million people. Now you're talking about a number much more than that. So Larry Grathwell is going to come on, tomorrow night, give us an update as to where he sees where we're at with respect to what's going on. But yes, the eerie aspect of the comparisons between Obama and Lincoln. This is not by accident.
And they're drawing up plans to put him on Mount Rushmore.
Well, whatever. I mean,
what's going on? Yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
Well, but I think what we have to do is we have to really look right now at exactly what the plans are. We have to know. We have to identify what these plans are with certainty, because how do we react? How do we handle, and how are we going to handle what's coming? In other words, what is our, what do we need to do? You've got the San Diego police chief, by the way, saying that we can disarm Americans within a generation. William Lansdowne, he's fully supportive of this Obama-Feinstein gun grab, and he says that if they play it right, Americans can be completely disarmed with a generation. Well, folks, let me tell you something. Obama is not going to wait a generation.
No. There's not time.
No, the people in power want to get this done before Obama. I mean, Obama they want as the last president of this constitutional republic. That's the plan.
Yes. On the other hand, though, we do have the Milwaukee County Sheriff saying, "Don't wait for the police. Arm yourselves." Milwaukee County Sheriff David A. Clark Jr. has a message for residents in his jurisdiction. You can't rely on him anymore. You need to arm yourself. On Friday, the Democratic sheriff issued a recorded public safety announcement on the radio and the web that encouraged residents to take their lives into their own hands. The transcript goes as follows. I'm Sheriff David Clark. I want to talk to you all about something personal, your safety. It's no longer a spectator sport. I need you in a game, but are you ready? With officers laid off and prolonged, simply calling 911 and waiting is no longer your best option. You can beg for mercy from a violent criminal, hide under the bed, or you can fight back. But are you prepared? Consider taking a careful or a certified safety course in handling a firearm so you can defend yourself until we get there. You have a duty to protect yourself and your family.
Well, and I would urge everyone to get this through your minds right now. Right now, even in the best of times, calling 911 when you are under threat, under immediate threat, chances are help is not going to arrive in time. So, if you're physically capable, and if you have the ability, if you've got the self-defense weapons there, you make sure that in addition to calling 911, you make sure that you are able to protect yourself or prepare to protect yourself, because you cannot wait for 911 response.
And I want to read the rest of this because I think this is interesting. The mayor of Milwaukee came in and said apparently Sheriff Clark is auditioning for the next Dirty Harry movie, released in a statement from his office. But the mayor, several years ago, was beaten within inches of his life by a tire iron wielding suspect. And the sheriff said, I would think that the mayor would be a lot more sensitive to people being able to defend themselves in such instances. And he's right.
Well, of course he's right. But we have to think now, the way things are right now, and understand, even in the best of the circumstances, 911 response is not going to help you. So
no, I never counted on that, and nor should you.
Not at all. But we need to start thinking now, anticipate what's going to take place, because we know wisdom is being able to discern, what's going to happen here in the near term. And
right. And there could be a time when there is no police available.
Correct. And this is what we need. We need to get all of these data points that we're looking at. Once again, the gunships in Houston and Miami and Los Angeles and I believe even in Pittsburgh this took place as well. We need to start putting these data points together to get a picture of what is being planned. Look, things are taking place right now at an exponential rate. Today we have to really appreciate that and to work within. We've got to work within those parameters. Understand the parameters that we need to work within.
Yeah, no, I agree. And our duty is to seek the Lord and find what He wants for us to do, especially in times of pestilence and things that are happening around us that are beyond our control. And we can't look to anything else. You're not going to have time to open a survival book when shots are being fired, or you're in a situation where you're either going to have to run or stand and fight. We need to know these things inherently. So on a daily basis, we need to be in prayer about these things. Prayer being prayer that we are led in the right direction, that we're doing the right things to be led in the right direction when these things do unfold. And because they're going to. We can see, any person who is in denial about it now is just, they've been psychologically damaged, I would say. They can't understand common sense. When you have Henry Kissinger saying Iran nuclear crisis is very close, and it's in the foreseeable future, and it's going to be a turning point in human history. Now you have also reports Israel warns of possible preemptive chemical weapon strike in Syria. Well, there's news that this could be based along the lines of a false flag, the chemical weapons. So, we are seeing things ramping up in the Middle East. And Larry Grathwalt will be on tomorrow. Thursday, we're going to have Bill Salas on, author of Israelistine and a couple other books. He has a new one out, Psalms 83, and he's going to be breaking down what is happening in the Middle East in great detail. So that's Thursday. He'll be with us. But we have
and I'm looking forward to that with respect to Bill Salas, because Bill Salas talks too about the confederation of 10 Arab countries that are forming to attack Israel, and he's, of course, that stems from the Book+of+Revelation, and he's written some very good scripturally based possibilities about what could very well happen. And then he has another book out to supplement his Revelation. It's the Psalm 83. It's about Psalm 83, but the Psalm 83 war, which is what we're looking at too. So you've got things happening domestically, things happening over in the Middle East, Syria, and such, Libya. The things are popping everywhere.
Yeah,
we really have to keep our eyes on what's taking place.
In Trenton, New Jersey, a gun buyback program netted more than 2,500 weapons. Mercer County officials say more than 2,500 weapons were turned in for cash during a 2-day gun buyback program. The Trenton gun buyback program surpassed one in Camden in December that netted more than 1,100 weapons. About 100,000 was budgeted, but because of the huge turnout, the amount spent is expected to be well over double that. Some participants were given vouchers after the money ran out. A final count of weapons collected will be released by the Attorney General's office on Tuesday. Now, in Seattle, you have a gun buyback program turning into a gun show and sale. A man buys a missile launcher during a weapons buyback event. Seattle police worked with Army officials Monday to track down the history of a non-functional missile launcher that showed up at a weapons buyback program to determine whether it was legal or possibly stolen from the military. A man standing outside the event bought the military weapon for $100 from another person, according to Detective Mark Jamieson.
Well, these are single-use weapons, and I mean, you know, to be honest with you, a lot of these gun buyback events are nothing more than once again a beta test, a litmus test to see the response from Americans. Can this, you know, can these buyback programs be effective? And a lot of times there are people who take advantage of these buyback programs by turning in guns that were never work, or that are not mechanically sound or whatever. But the thing we have to watch, and I really believe this, is we have to see, we have to look ahead here and look to see if there is a confiscation or a registration that will lead to a confiscation. We, as people who are very, very concerned about the Second Amendment or Second Amendment rights and being able to protect ourselves, we have to look at this and judge from, but we're going to have to extrapolate a little bit of information here, or a little bit of, be able to look at this and say, okay, what's going to be the level of participation in these, in retaining our Second Amendment rights? How many people are going to not comply with the illegal registration / confiscation? How many people are not going to comply with this?
Well, we do have news on that from earlier in the week or this weekend. There in New York, people are refusing to register their guns under the New York law. This is from Friday. After Democrats in New York rammed a sweeping assault on the right to keep and bear arms through the legislature that failed to exempt police officers from the draconian restrictions, gun owners and some lawmakers are planning what has been dubbed potentially the largest act of civil disobedience in state history. According to news reports, gun right activists are urging everyone to defy the far-left Governor Andrew Cuomo's new registration mandate while daring authorities to come and take it. Analysts say the legislation, passed in a frenzy last week in the wake of the Newtown shooting, represents the most brazen infringement on the right to keep and bear arms anywhere in the nation. Also, the SAFE Act, they go on to say, limiting magazines to 7 bullets, require all the estimated 1 million semi-automatic rifles in the state to be registered with authorities. Mandate reporting of patients who express indications that they have thoughts about hurting themselves or others by doctors and more. But the big story here, they're saying, screw the governor and screw Cuomo, not in those words. I used a nice word. We're not going to register our guns, and I think they're serious. People are not going to do it. People are going to resist, explained State Rifle and Pistol Association President Tom King, who also serves on the NRA Board of Directors. They're taking one of the guarantees of civil rights, and they're taking it away. The government is.
The second that you comply, that anyone complies, or you personally comply with registration, is the very second that you put yourself on the line. And one can argue, well, do I risk being a criminal by not complying with the law?
Would you rather be a criminal of a lawless or a garbage, bogus, void law, or would you rather be a victim? That's the question you get.
You will be a victim. You will be a victim if you would register and cooperate with such a law, because regardless, and it doesn't matter who says what, the step between, and we've seen this historically, from registration to confiscation is a very short leap. This will take place. It's just a matter of time. So I'll tell you one thing: if I lived in New York State, or if in my state they came through with a registration requirement, I will not comply, and I'll say that publicly. I will not comply, and I would not comply with any type of confiscation. I would not submit to any kind of weapons confiscation whatsoever. These people that we have here in government right now want want America to be disarmed. Look, Jerome Corsi, he appeared on Alex+Jones here the other day, and I know it's on YouTube. Oh, and I want to thank Lucy. Thank you, Lucy, for letting me know. The 1962 film Manchurian Candidate is available on Facebook. I believe you can find it. The entire movie is available on the internet. So if you have, like I said, if you've got some time, I would definitely invest in watching that movie. It's fictional, but it does speak to what we're going to be talking about throughout the week and even in the next week. But we're going to, that's just one thing I want to mention.
I want to go to an audio here. Nationwide ammo shortages. The ammo is gone. The ammo shortage panic has dried up supplies around the country. Hopefully you listened to us and stocked up a long time ago. If you didn't, you won't be finding ammo anytime soon. With the national dialogue being dominated by gun control, people have been buying up ammo like nothing I've ever seen. The waiting list on semi-automatic rifles, handguns, and ammunition has grown so long that a number of major retailers have actually told their stores to stop ordering because their orders cannot be filled. And I got an audio here about how this is affecting law enforcement. We'll play this. It's about 2.5 minutes.
Well, concerns over stricter gun control has some stockpiling ammunition, and this affects all of us because your local police department or sheriff's office may have a hard time getting their supply of bullets. Our Serena Fazan joins us now with what could be a potential shortage. Serena?
Brendan, that's right. Law enforcement calls it panic buying, and as a result, some agencies are seeing delays in shipments. Others are taking proactive steps, and all agree this run on ammo is something they need to keep a close eye on. Across the country and the Bay Area, many shelves for ammunition sit empty, while gun shows are seeing unprecedented lines of people buying guns and bullets. St. Pete police have already seen a delay. While they have an ample supply for ammo that officers carry on the street, there is an issue with the bullets they use for target practice.
Right now, there is a delay in shipment. We understand from the manufacturers. There's been such a dramatic run on this stuff right now is that they've actually back ordered it. We are promised that we will get our orders sooner or later, but they just really can't put a specific date like they used to.
Mike Pett stresses there is no reason to be alarmed yet.
Depending on how long this disruption in distribution continues, it certainly could become problematic down the pike.
Manatee officials tell us if this keeps up, they could be waiting a year for delivery on their shipments. The Tampa Police Department says they have stockpiled ammunition, but because of the surge in demand, they actually changed procedure, at least temporarily.
And instead of just issuing officers practice ammo, we're now scheduling open range days, and then when they show up for those days, they are then given the ammo to utilize.
So we just want to prevent any type of shortage by having better controls over our practice ammo.
Pinellas and Pasco County are keeping a close eye on the issue as well. Spokespeople from both agencies say they have been ordering ample amounts since the war on terror began over 10 years ago. And since then, they have been keeping an abundant supply. Hillsborough Sheriff officials say they have stockpiled as well. Pet says no matter what, the agencies will keep citizens safe. If need be, they will take whatever measure necessary.
Obviously, if it ever got to a situation where we thought there was an issue for public safety, then we'd reach out, obviously, to our elected officials, maybe to help with us securing these type of tools and equipment that we need. I don't think it's gotten to the point where, we need to get into some sort of special legislation at this point.
Now, law enforcement officials do tell us they have priority in getting ammunition, but if there isn't any to sell, then that's a moot point. Back to you, Lynn.
Now, I want to just chime in here with this. This is a segue to what you just heard. I don't know how many people know this, but the government right now is engaged in illegal activity. They are destroying used ammunition, all right? More evidence has come to light recently that this administration, Obama administration, is breaking the law, defying official government policy by ordering the destruction of expended brass at military installations. Now, this is the brass that's often used by civilian gun owners to make their own ammunition. Now, gun rights members, people, they often make their own ammunition. It's a process called reloading, folks, and I'm sure you've heard people talk about it. And they take the spent brass from once fired bullets to make homemade ammunition, and it works very well. And it's a way to keep the prices of ammunition down and recycle the brass. Well, now it's being reported that the government is destroying used brass at Fort Drum. This was, and also at Camp Lejeune. So when the administration attempted, by the way, to destroy expended brass back in 2009, two United States senators, Sean Tester and Max Baucus, wrote a letter to the DOD, or the Defense Logistics Agency, and they were told that, hey, we stopped this. The Department of Defense stopped this. Well, the problem is what they were doing had been against the law up to that point. And the law clearly states that once fired small arms cartridges cases are to be made available intact on the open market. So in other words, the used ammunition cartridges are not to be destroyed, but sold to us, to citizens. Well, the Defense Department was merely telling the senators what they wanted to hear. The illegal practice of destroying used cartridges has continued and still continues, and at the specific orders of the Obama regime. It's an enormous concern to gun owners right now, especially in the current climate. And this is one way in which this regime is seeking ways to limit citizens' access to guns and ammunition. With all of this talk about gun bans and ammunition restrictions, people have vowed to take matters in their own hands and make their own weapons and ammunition in order to make clear a statement to the government that they intend to exercise their right guaranteed by the Second Amendment to the Constitution to keep and bear arms. But in order to exercise that right in the climate of a tyrannical government, citizens need the ability, or at least need the accessibility to things like brass to make their own ammunition. If these brass cartridges are destroyed by the government, brass could become very hard to get. We don't know how widespread this practice is right now of mutilating the expended brass cartridges, but we do know it's taking place at major military installations against the law, and this has to be stopped. The questions are now, what other military camps or installations are engaging in this practice? Do they know? Of course they do, that this is illegal, and who is giving the ultimate actual order for the military to break the law? We need to know that. We need to verify that. We need to know who's behind the order, and we need to expose this, because this is one more way of taking guns and ammunition away from the people.
Mm-hmm. President Obama today asked police to help pass his gun legislation. President Barack Obama kept up pressure on Congress Monday to pass through tough new gun legislation seeking to help law enforcement leaders in 3 communities that have suffered horrors of mass shootings. At the White House meeting, Obama said that no group is more important than the gun debate, and that he recognizes the issue elicits a lot of passion all across the country. But Obama also said he believes Congress will respond to appeals from police. Hopefully, if law enforcement officials who are dealing with this stuff every single day can come to some basic consensus in terms of steps that we need to take, Congress is going to be paying attention to them, and we'll be able to make progress. The president's meeting comes as he tries to build support for gun control legislation that will be difficult to get through Congress. He urged Congress to pass an assault weapons ban, limit high-capacity magazines, and require universal background checks. Obama's campaign manager, Jim Messina, has indicated that he will be using the power of the president's still intact political organization to mobilize support for the legislation. Messina traveled to New York City last week to meet with the aides of Mayor Bloomberg at City Hall, according to a person familiar with the discussion, speaking on the condition of anonymity since the meeting was private. Bloomberg has tightened gun laws in the city and found Mayors Against Illegal Guns, a coalition that now has more than 800 mayors pushing for national gun control legislation.
Well, here we have it. We're back in 1775, 1776 when we are now the patriots. It's my firm belief that civil war is now, seriously, it is inevitable, and
I mean, look at the Dianne Feinstein bill. It's come out that not everyone is exempt from owning military-style assault weapons under the new legislation proposed by U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein. Weapons used by government officials and law enforcement will be prohibited by the law proposed by the California Democrat, which would prohibit the sale, manufacture, and importation of 158 specifically named semi-automatic weapons and ammunition magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. Any weapons legally owned before the bill's enactment would also be exempt, though those firearms would have to be registered in a national database. In addition, more than 2,200 types of hunting and sporting rifles and manually operated firearms would also be exempt. But it goes on, their bodyguards will be able to keep the weapons. The government officials will be able to keep their weapons. The DHS will be able to keep their weapons. The EPA will be able to keep their weapons. Anybody but the American people. They were going to strip the citizens of their weapons in a move that has constantly been compared to Adolf Hitler's Nazi takeover of Germany. Pro-gun extremists, such as NRA board member Ted Nugent, recently stated that any additional gun laws are the first step toward an all-out confiscation. In the event, the conservative blogosphere argues could potentially lead to a totalitarian state. The exemption of government officials and law enforcement from the Feinstein bill may encourage that line of thinking.
Well, as we lead up to the break in the first hour, let me just kind of go through this really quick here, just to kind of give us a summary of where we're at. Folks, the Bill of Rights is under attack as never before, and the assault, every bit the definition of treasonous to the most reasonable of people, to you and I. I mean, by definition, this is treasonous. This is war being waged by the very government whose charge it is to preserve, protect, and defend the Bill of Rights. A growing nation of sheeple, that's the people out there that don't get it yet, fostered by large carrots on short sticks and sold as free, has been complicit in helping to usher in this era of the dependent serf. It's a cohort so lacking in intellectual wherewithal that independence for them is the pejorative their government masters tell them it is. And think of religious freedom being conscripted in pursuit of further socializing medicine, for example. Think of progressives seeking to curtail gun liberties in the name of security. Forget about the fact that they're too ignorant to realize or too hubris filled to accept that those who do not deserve liberty, neither liberty nor security, but will learn in tragic fashion that neither can exist in such a climate. These are but two examples of a nation in serious straits. That's us. We are in serious straits. We are in a nation our nation is on a collision course with history. And think about that, a collision course easily avoided had its citizenry, that's us, even but only average students of history. Now, where's this going to lead? It's going to lead to no good, nothing resembling the constitutional republic of the founders, by the way. A republic that's hardly antiquated, hardly the antiquated proposition its perverters claim, and whose continued perversions will only embolden the dictatorial tin horns now cutting their teeth on the Constitution from which they continually take bites. This is America's new normal, this brainless perversion of what once was. Think about this. On January, well, you know what? I'm not going to go through this. You know what's been taking place. You know about Cuomo. You know about these draconian laws. At this point, we have to wake up. We have to wake up and decide exactly what step we're going to take to ensure that our Bill of Rights is preserved. Not one more inch, not one more step.
When we come back, we're going to have some more news on the Pentagon's new cybersecurity increase, also on some local municipalities using some draconian new technology to file. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood. KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Hold on to your seat. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this Monday, January 28th edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. You're in for another 2 hours of news and your phone calls at 661-244-9839. We'll take those. We'll start taking those in the next 20 minutes or so. So if you guys want to call in, anything you want to talk about, give us a call. 661-244-9839 is the number.
Is my understanding, too, by the way, that number is going to be changed? or
No, we'll be able to keep the same number. There is a different number, or was last night, for the call-in number. Both numbers, to my knowledge, work fine.
Okay.
And the old number will stay the same.
All right.
The Pentagon is going to boost its cyber security force. This is a big deal that we're going to have to get into with a little bit of time. But first, I wanted to hit a few articles here. First, from Breitbart, journalist accosted by security over Mayor Bloomberg on gun control question. This is a journalist. It says, in an explosive exchange outside the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting in Washington, D.C., security guards for billionaire New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg accosted senior talk radio network investigative reporter Jason Matera when he asked the mayor about his strong support for gun control. There's a video at Breitbart.com. It says, in the video, Bloomberg is seen surrounded by security. Matera approaches Bloomberg and asks, in the spirit of gun control, will you disarm your entire security team? Bloomberg's reply, we'll get right back to you. And why can you defend yourself but not the majority of Americans, Matera asked as the mayor walked away. Look at the team of security you got. And you're an advocate for gun control? The video then cuts to Matera walking further down the street when one of the men guarding Bloomberg, identified as Officer Stockton, New York PD, stops him and asks to see his photo ID. Matera complies before asking, is this standard procedure for the press? He says, wait, it's standard procedure to be questioning members of the press. Is it standard procedure to be questioning members of the press? The officer reaches inside his jacket and grabs a pen as if to write down the journalist's name, and he says, you're going to write it down, Matera says. And the officer responds, oh, no, sorry. The video then cuts to a scene further down the street where Officer Stockton, still trailing Matera once again, can be heard saying, Mr. Matera, sir, do you have a date of birth? He says, it's none of your business what my date of birth is. January 18th was the day this happened on the in-street interview done in conjunction with Talk Radio Networks, the Andrea Tantaros show. It's not the first time that Matera has received terrible treatment for asking liberal politicians tough questions.
This is going to happen more and more. You're going to start seeing this more and more. You're going to start seeing...
Look what's happening in Iran.
Well,
Iranian journalists arrested in raids on newspapers. Sources say reformist newspapers targeted by a group of plainclothes officials who ransacked offices and filmed staff. Security officials in Iran have raided at least 4 newspapers and arrested several journalists in what appears to be a concerted action aimed at intimidating the media in advance of the presidential elections in June. Sources in Tehran say the reformist newspapers, Edamad and 3 other ones, were targeted by a group of plainclothes officials who ransacked offices, filmed staff, confiscated documents, and held several journalists. The Guardian phoned journalists at the Edamad and Bahanar in the evening. Officials were still present in the offices, and editors of the 2 newspapers could not be reached. Imam Ahad's editor-in-chief was reported to be among at least 10 of the journalists who were arrested.
Well, we are going to see this, according to my sources within the higher level sources within Department of Homeland Security. You're going to see this take place here in this country, not necessarily against mainstream media publications, but against bloggers. The information that I've recently received is the fact that there's going to be subtle, at first subtle intimidation of bloggers who are anti-Obama or who are not willing to go along with the official narrative of anything from the 9/11 attacks to the Oklahoma City attacks to any type of questioning, any type of conspiratorial type of anything that doesn't comport with right. And And here's how they're going to do it according to my source. One, they're going to, and they already have, upwards of 5,000 full-time employees to marginalize that do nothing but sit behind desks. Some, by the way, work from their homes. Some get some work part-time. But it amounts to a 24/7 coverage. They scour the political forums, the boards, the web discussion forums, and what they do is they attack the messenger. If they have a bit of information, for example, Canada Free Press, I'll write an article, and then the comments come in, and a lot of times these comments are, and folks, you don't see some of these because some of these are so obvious, and they're traced back to an IP address or a block of IP addresses that can be hooked right into not the government, but to the campaign of Obama. Think about that. Not the government, not the NSA or no, an extension of the Obama campaign where they are actually employing people to marginalize and to divert threads and topics and to make fun of people. That's one way. The other way is if the threat is big enough, they're going to go after the bloggers personally, whether it be the old style, the audits, the IRS audits. That's already in progress. There are numerous other methods that they're employing as well. And we have to look at this. In addition to all of that, we have to also look at what's taking place with, and forgive me if you think that this is a little bit off the deep end. Hey, car accidents, heart attacks. Look at Andrew Breitbart. People have to start realizing right now that this is an entirely different playing field. We are now looking at, if you get too far into something, we'll say Benghazi, and you become a real pain, a real formidable someone who is really trying to expose the cover-up, and if it gets too far out of hand, yes, you could be subjected to unpleasantries, physical unpleasantries, harassment. This is taking place. And one thing too, while I'm on this subject as well, how did we get here? And we oftentimes, and I'm a big believer in looking back in history and looking at different aspects. There was a recent article about Joe McCarthy. Joe McCarthy was right all along, and of course I've said this many times on this program, and I'm a big proponent of the book by M. Stanton Evans about Joe McCarthy. But I just want to say this, that most people right now are pretty unlikely to be familiar with the facts behind the term McCarthyism. You hear the term McCarthyism, people automatically associate that with something very bad in American politics. It's like a communist witch hunt. And especially in Hollywood right now, or even in Hollywood over the last 50 years, the Hollywood left really demonized Joe McCarthy. Everyone, if you go out and if you ask a history student in college about Joe McCarthy, obviously you would more than likely receive the answer, well, he was out of control. It was a witch hunt for communists. And that, of course, his name is ruined in perpetuity, basically, and this is by design. Well, most Americans know a little more than what is really a completely false narrative about Joe McCarthy. In recent years, there have been revelations from the archives in Washington and even in Moscow after the wall fell that have confirmed the McCarthy's investigation, those conducted by other officials before and after, netted not only McCarthy was right. That I guess the bottom line is this: McCarthy was right. He was a great patriot and deserving the plaudits of a grateful nation. This of course, wrote Stanton Evans in his book, Blacklisted by History. And folks, if you haven't gotten it, it's a 680-some page book. It's a treasure trove of information, because it even brings you to the 1990s and how a lot of the records were taken from the archives in the decade of the 90s to cover up what was found in the 50s and the 40s by McCarthy and others. Just a couple of things. The Soviet intelligence operation, today, right now, we are suffering from the infiltration by Soviet intelligence operatives by communists into the State Department. And McCarthy was instrumental in bringing this infiltration to light, like around 1950, 1951. If you have the time, and you can't read the book, or if you're really not interested in reading the book, you can search things like Amerasia, the Amerasia affair. That was named after a pro-communist journal of the day. It will give you the needed context, the perspective on the McCarthy era. That's something for you to take a look at, and I would recommend that. But we are seeing the effects today of an infiltration back in the 40s and the 50s of communists into our government.
Yeah, just last year on January 12th, Obama's Cass Sunstein said the government should infiltrate all social network sites, chat rooms, and message boards. Just prior to his appointment as President, Obama's so-called regulatory czar, Cass Sunstein, wrote a lengthy academic paper suggesting the government should infiltrate social networking websites, chat rooms, and message boards. Such cognitive infiltration, Sunstein argued, should be used to enforce a U.S. government ban on conspiracy theorizing.
So there you have it. You've got that now, the paid informants or infiltration people, the 5,000 strong army by the Obama campaign, not the government necessarily, but the Obama campaign people, into social networking sites, into forums, and seeding the different forums, and going after the people attempting to expose the tyranny and the corruption and the I want to say Soviet style tactics, but I guess the communist bent, the communist objectives here that we're seeing taking place. And by the way, a big part of this too is the Federal Reserve. And I know all of this is connected. We need to take a look, because we're facing, in addition to everything else that we're talking about, we're facing an oncoming collapse of the United States dollar. And when that happens, you're going to see a perfect storm between the economic explosion or implosion, the racial and social riots. Remember, bottom up, top down. What does that do? That squeezes out the middle class. You're going to have a nation of kings and their subjects. And folks, I don't want to be a subject, and I know you don't either. But this is what they're going after. So there are numerous battlefields right now. It's an asymmetrical war.
Yes, it is. And continuing with news, the New York Police Department is trying to deploy, or going to deploy, personal body scanners that can detect guns. Now the LAPD is using a Stingray device to track cell phone users. The Los Angeles Police Department is using an anti-terrorism device that indiscriminately sweeps up cell phone communications of innocent bystanders during a burglary, drug, and murder investigations. LA Weekly wrote back in September that police agencies purchased Stingray technology in 2006 using the DHS funds, and it's deploying the portable equipment for routine police operations. They call it regional terrorism investigations. Stingray pretends that it is the cell tower and fools wireless phones into establishing a connection. Once connected, it can establish a cell location and download all information of people who are not aware, raising all sorts of privacy concerns. What a surprise. I don't have the video available to show you, but my dad watched it yesterday on a drone program that they were given access into filming, where this drone program could cover, or this one drone could cover an area, basically, what was it, like 15 miles? It was miles by miles, okay?
Well, we'll say 3 square miles, only because that seems more from memory. But imagine, on your cell phone, the cameras on your cell phone, imagine having those cameras. If you have like a BlackBerry or whatever, and you turn it over, you see that little camera there?
Yeah.
368 of those. Imagine that.
And the technology that they could do with this is, they say they can leave the drones in the air for any length of time, and they can real-time monitor anything that's moving, any area. They can see up to anything 6 inches on the ground, 6 inches away from the ground. They can zoom in that far. And
they could read the time off of your cell phone. That's the resolution from 3 miles in the air.
And this is a demonstration that was allowed by the government to happen, just showing the types of technology they have, ending with, are they using, the question was asked, are they using these now, which the military said we can't, so that's classified. And, I mean, we start getting into discussions about, fighting this tyranny with weapons of this earth. How can you fight against an all-seeing eye in the sky that tracks every movement of every person?
Well,
that can see the heat, body heat of anything that moves, that can know what will protect you from that.
Well, you're going to need not only a good, solid plan, a practical plan, but also the armor of God as well. Look, this is a spiritual battle as much as it is a practical battle. When David went against Goliath, it wasn't. You think that was a fair fight? Of course not. But he had God on the side. So we have to understand that we know how the story ends. Do we not? We know how the story ends. We know that the good shall prevail. But we also know that there's going to be a lot of hard times between now and then. We can't give up the fight. We have to fight. We've got to carry the fight on to the next day, to the next person, because we're not only fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for our children and their children. We're fighting for that. We're fighting for. It's just not us we're fighting for. It's for our future. And this is, and I can't wait till tomorrow, because I do believe Larry Graffel is going to bring in some new information, give his take on Obama, knowing what he's known for the last 35, 40 years about how these people operate. He's going to be able to put things in context with respect to the gun grab and what's taking place today. Even the drone that we just talked about, that aspect, how things are playing out, because he knows how these people think, and that's. So this is something that we have to really we've got to get we've got to get geared up. We know we're in for a fight. We know we're in for a fight.
Yeah, and if we're not, if it's not a physical fight, it'll be a fight for survival. And
well, it's going to be spiritual, physical. The fight that we are going to, that is being brought to us, is going to be one that we have to make a decision. We have to decide how we're going to act. We have to seek discernment as well, and the prayerful discernment. But we also have to understand that we cannot, at this point, we cannot give an inch anymore. We cannot be bullied into, how we got here is sure, go ahead, and for the sake of security, go ahead. I'll take my shoes off, and then I'll take, okay, you can stick your hands over my pants. Okay, now you can stick your hands down my pants. See, it's incremental, and we allowed ourselves to get here because we allowed that incremental encroachment and erosion of our liberties. No more, not one more inch. And I'm going to tell you something else. At this point, we have to start taking those liberties back. And we have to say enough is enough. And we have to stop cooperating with this tyranny, because there's just no other option. There is, and I don't know, folks, have you heard this? Homeland Security training, we're training TSA workers. In the event of a mass shooting, save yourself. Okay, transportation, the TSA checkpoint screeners are receiving training to prepare themselves for the possibility of a mass shooting, and they're being told to save themselves. Look for the nearest exit. That's your brave TSA screener. Now, can you imagine?
Hey, what was it? Run, hide, and then fight if you have to? Or was the DHS mass survival video they put out?
Exactly. Now, so these are the cretins that we are going to go up against. These are the finest? Of course not. You know, once again, we have to, at this point, we've got to understand that we are fighting some bullies here. And again, not one more inch. Not one more inch. We are not going to allow we're not going to give another inch.
I didn't mention this to you today, but there is a new PDF out of TSA standard operating procedure for handling all transportation stops and checkpoints they do at airports, whether it be TSA scanners, the pat-downs, and other things. I'll have to email that over to you, and we'll have to go through it and hit on it tomorrow, maybe with Mr. Grathwohl. But in other news, Egyptian protesters defied curfew and attacked police stations. Egyptian protesters defiled a nighttime curfew in restive towns along the Suez Canal, attacking police stations and ignoring emergency rule, basically martial law, being imposed by Islamist President Mohammed Morsi to end the days of clashes that killed at least 52 people. Okay, so they're having protests in Egypt today.
That's right.
In the last 5 days. Yeah. Today, 52 people were killed. I want to go back in time to when Mubarak was overthrown, to when Gaddafi was overthrown. Wasn't the big outcry that protesters were being killed, so we have to go in and overthrow these dictators? That was the narrative that was used.
Well,
right?
It has everything to do with agenda. It has nothing to do with the responsibility to protect doctrine or anything close to that. So, of course.
No, but it fits a pattern. It fits the hypocritical pattern that spans from agenda to agenda, regardless of the real enemy versus a made-up enemy. The wishes of the American people are not listened to, are not taken into account. Doesn't matter how many people, and they don't even care anymore. They say it. Yeah, we're funding Al-Qaeda to overthrow countries. Well, this is the result. And people said this was going to happen. People said this was going to get worse over there. The Christians were going to be killed. It was going to become an extreme Islamic rule in Egypt and Libya, and after Syria and Assad go, when they go, it'll be the same there. And they're doing this all around the world, in the Middle East. And not only that, we're giving arms and fighter jets and rocket launchers and weapons to the same nations who used to have a good or at least peaceful relationship with Israel, 99% of their dictatorship, like Mubarak and Gaddafi. Now you have these countries, like what's his name in Egypt, Morsi, saying that the Jewish people are what? What did he say they were? Pigs, and he was calling them names. But we're giving these people fighter jets. Yet the people of this country have to have their guns taken away because of a few very crazy, people that aren't responsible.
Well, it even gets worse than that. I mean, you're looking at Morsi and things taking place in Egypt. I don't know how many people know this. The recall over the weekend, there was a massive hack by Anonymous that apparently there were some emails that were, or files that were taken. And I don't know how many people saw this, but alleged hacked emails from defense contractor Brick Ram reveal a plan approved by Washington and funded by the nation of Qatar to stage chemical weapons attacks in Syria and blame it on the Assad regime. Folks, remember us telling you about this. The chemical weapons by Assad are in the hands of the Free Syrian Army in some cases. And it's going to be made to look like Assad had done or had engaged in a chemical weapons attack against his own people. Now, these leaked emails were obtained reportedly by a hacker in Malaysia, and they involve an exchange between Britain's defense director and the company's founder, the company that is involved in the defense contracting. There's a proposal, an attractive deal that is supposedly approved by Washington. The email states that delivering a chemical weapon to homes, a Soviet origin G shell from Libya, similar to those that Assad should have, to be deployed and to make it appear that Assad, in fact, gassed his own people. And that is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing exposure to these plans. There are rips in the fabric, in the veneer of these conspiracies now. And we can thank some of these hackers for bringing forth these documents. And for better or for worse, it's better to know that this is, in fact, a possibility. We talked about this before with Benghazi. This is part of the program, because that would then, at that point, allow NATO to come in, and, just like they did in Egypt, it would allow NATO to come in and overthrow Syria and put our men, our boots on the ground. And who will we be facing besides the Syrian army, but Iranians and Russians? And this is how World War III is going to start.
Well, Iran came out and said that any attack on Syria is an attack on Iran.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And this is what we have to be concerned. There will be false flags, and the false flags, it'll look as if Assad is responsible for gassing his own people. Now, Assad's not a good guy, but at least there is some level of
human?
No, stability, I guess.
He gave a speech saying that this is not a revolution by or created by his people, but it is backed by Western influences, money, and arms. He was right.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there are things right now taking place over there that will ignite a regional conflict, and will bring in, will usher in World War III. Look, there's 60,000 Syrians that are dead. There are going to be 4 million dead, including Christians. By the way, folks, have you seen this? Senior Obama official, we're going to kill the dollar. And that should not surprise anyone, should it? Because,
no.
And isn't it funny, or isn't it interesting that we had our program with Steve Quayle last, and the individual, right, no, it's V. And by the way, I've seen some pretty ridiculous comments about V. The V is the initial of the guy's name. It doesn't stand for any type of satanic, demonic, whack job thing. So whoever is out there posting that crap, knock it off, okay? But here's the deal.
I laugh at that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, come on, really? I mean, are you that intellectually hobbled?
Hey, I'll just say this: if people want to assume that and do that kind of thing, they're free to do that.
Well, I guess, but it gets to the point where it's not even humorous. It's sad that you've got this intellectual this mental deficit where you've got to create these
I agree with
idiots.
That. It is sad to see, and it's not just those people; it's all these people that are lost. And David Langford said it very well yesterday when he said, "How could you support somebody like Obama? How could you vote in the election for somebody like Obama, who supports the killing of unborn babies, who supports, disarming the people, who supports communist, Marxist ideas and is implementing them, and still say you're a Christian?"
No, that's right, and that's I can't add to that. But Kyle Bass, if you don't know who Kyle Bass is, he's big, and he's a economic guy, a finance guy. He spoke to a senior member of the Obama administration about their planned solutions for fixing the economy and trade deficit. He was asked, how are we going to grow exports if we won't allow nominal wage deflation? And the answer was, we're just going to kill the dollar. That comes from an Obama administration official. We're just going to kill the dollar. That's the only answer.
Yeah, and there's news out of China isolating the U.S. dollar. They're talking about possibly using a gold-backed currency. This isn't new. It's a couple weeks old, but this is something that popped up. I saw pop up today, and they just see that only an external force will result in change. When the U.S. dollar is further isolated, that change will come. And what they're doing is they say will bring momentum pressures on the U.S. dollar, and it will change from the inside due to internal forces. And they're expecting, it's like expecting an alcoholic to change from his own awakening. They refer to how the dollar and our Federal Reserve printing quantitative easing program and the Treasury bond deal is. These people aren't going to stop unless you force them to stop. They're going to devalue the dollar right into the ground.
You know, somebody asked me the other day why the stock market was doing so well. In fact, I had a conversation this weekend with someone who said that, in fact, it was a family friend who said, well, you know, you've got to be wrong. You're wrong. Everything is fine. And with respect to the economy, I said, how do you figure that? And he said, well, look at the stock market. When have you seen such a rallying behind the stock market in the last 4, 5, 6 years? Well,
because the dollar is so low.
It's the reckless money printing that the Federal Reserve has been doing that has resulted in this in the recent months. When the Federal Reserve does the quantitative easing, it is the financial markets that benefit. And people have to understand how this works.
Yeah, they're talking about China has made numerous bilateral swap accounts with other nations. As the label indicates, they are deals cut between China and other nations to freely use Chinese yuan from a credited account that will retain equilibrium. So far, many nations have signed up and even renewed deals. The list of nations include Brazil, Russia, Japan, and India. One might be correct to include all of Asia on the list, as nations like South Korea, Taiwan, and Vietnam freely trade in yuan transactions.
And these are all connected now.
Major signal that the bilateral swaps have taken hold sufficiently to undermine the U.S. dollar through a new trade foundation will be the complete arena of Asian trade being conducted in yuan transactions. What do we have on Obama's agenda? The Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement.
Of course.
That ties into this.
And remember, Obama was kind of kicked out of that because of the dollar. But getting back to the stock market, is a rising stock market, or is the level of the stock market really an indication of our economic health? Is a sign that the overall economy is rapidly improving, as a lot of people are talking about.
As the stock market goes up, so are the prices of food, so are the prices of energy, so are the prices of everyday living. So no,
of course not. It's a bubble. What we're seeing is a false stock market bubble with a bunch of money that's backed by nothing. And it doesn't mean that our economy is in great shape. In fact, the truth of the matter is things are getting worse for the average Americans, for you and I. The percentage of working-age Americans with a job fell from 60% to 58%. This just while Obama has occupied the Oval Office, and 40% of all American workers are making $20,000 a year or less. The median household income has declined for 4 years in a row. Poverty is exploding. Quantitative easing has definitely not made things better for the middle class. Ben Bernanke is an economic terrorist, as is Geithner, as is Obama. The Keynesian theory, as opposed to the Austrian theory of economics, is behind this. We need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, the Keynesian economics, the Keynesian theory versus the Austrian theory. The Keynesian theory is you just keep spending money and spending money and spending money. This, of course, is tied in with the Cloward-Pittman strategy to overload the system. You've got economic terrorists in the form of Bernanke, Geithner, and, of course, a terrorist extraordinaire in the form of Obama, employing the Keynesian model of economics as well as the Cloward-Pittman strategy, which is going to be a perfect storm for what's taking place or what's about to take place, and that's the collapse of our economy.
Yeah, and one of the things we can do is reach out to our neighbors and all the people around us, even if they'll listen or not, and just say, look, there might be a currency collapse and a civil war coming. I just want you to know when the fighting starts, we need to all understand we can't be fighting each other. That's a start to a solution.
Well, yes, and I think that we need to start, and this is what Joe and I, we talk about this all the time.
People are going to be fighting their neighbors for food resources, for other resources, and the neighbors aren't the real enemy. They're just trying to survive like you are, only you might be prepared a little bit better than they are.
So, and that's our recommendation is to, while we still can,
get away from the computer, get away from the TV, get outside.
Yes, talk to your neighbors.
Right.
And have a conversation with them. That's what you need to do. Now, if they're not open to that, then you understand that, well, you know who you can trust and who you can't trust. We need to get on the same page here, because that's right, Joe. We're not going to be able to fight our next door neighbors or two doors down when we're fighting the people that are coming up from the inner cities or wherever. It's just not going to work. Yeah, we need to get on the same page, and we need to start making our and we can all do this. Folks, you can do this. Talk to your neighbors. You can start getting together with like-minded people. Do it on a local level.
Yeah. We're going to start taking calls. 661-244-9839 is the number if you want to join us. We are going to go to area code 917 first. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
How you doing, gentlemen?
Very well. What's on your mind?
Great show last night.
Yeah, it was a great show. I thought it was.
Oh, it was unbelievable. It's obvious we're in trouble when this guy in the White House hasn't done a thing positive for this country, and he's getting hailed around like he's a king. So that right there is a pure warning sign. I wanted to talk to you guys about these tests that were going on, these training exercises. If they were training for, a foreign invasion or some sort of warfare, they wouldn't be practicing above American cities. So the only thing I could think of is that they're doing it to desensitize us to that sort of movement, or they're trying to get a reaction and hope that somebody shoots down one of their airplanes or helicopters so that they could turn it into live, because most of these false flag attacks over time happen, from a drill or during some sort of training.
Well, I'll disagree with you on the first point about them not doing it here. We see them doing the active shooter drills here in America, all over the place, in schools unannounced, and different places unannounced, and then boom, we see it happening. We see a lot of drills have coincided with a lot of terrorist or alleged terrorist attacks in the past. So that's the only reason I would disagree with you. And I don't think anything's out of the realm of possibility. Yeah. I mean, we've had military training where they have trained to take away and confiscate guns from the American people. Then we see it happen when Katrina hit New Orleans. They went in New Orleans, the military did, and took the weapons away from the people. It's happened a lot more than we know.
Well, a lot more than has been publicized. Yeah, I mean, but we can see I can see your point, though. But if somebody took one of these helicopters down, I don't know what would happen. I mean, But you're saying you think that this could very well be like they're baiting us into attempting to take one of these down?
Yeah, I mean, either they're baiting normal people or they have somebody on the ground that's kind of ready to just go along with their game to create the illusion like somebody did something. You know where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a possibility also. There
and
can
then
be
the other thing I
communications
thought
are cut
about.
off.
What's that?
Go ahead. I was going to say there could be a time where communications are cut off, and they're running drills like this, saying, this city's been nuked or this happened when none of it's true, and you can't get the real information regardless.
I don't know about you, caller, but I don't want to step out my door and see a Black Hawk, screaming down the main street,
firing blanks or not.
Yeah, it's a little bit disconcerting to see that. So
it's crazy. I mean, the fear. I mean, I feel bad for the poor senior citizens that are down in Florida who don't listen to the news that much. They don't know what's going on. I mean, that's not fair without a warning to do something like that to people.
Of course not. No, it's not. And it's not only is it not fair, it's actually provocative. And see that this regime is becoming more emboldened every day, and I don't know how else to describe what we're seeing, but provocative and provocations here.
It's pure arrogance. I don't care about anybody. Yeah. I don't care about the rules. I'm going to do what I want to do. And the other thing I thought about when you guys brought it up earlier was the Super Bowl. I mean, that's coming up, and that seems to be a hot topic that people are talking about.
Well,
I've heard a few people mention it. I've seen a few things on the internet, but I'm not going to speculate. I've heard in some Brazil where the 2014 World Cup's going to happen, there's going to be some kind of a false flag attack this year. I don't know. There's so much hype that people, they last year, we went through the same thing with the Super Bowl. Oh, it's going to be nuked. It's going to be this and that. And it wasn't. And this happens a lot of times. And this is part of what we need to watch for. And I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying that there's a lot of disinformation and other theories thrown out there to keep our minds off of what's really important.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, caller, anything is possible. However, I think that we have to look in the places not necessarily expected. While the right, while they want you to focus on the right hand, watch what the left hand is doing. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, 100% right. I mean, these drills are terrorism by definition, and it's like you said, something's fishy, something's not right.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I'm a little bit concerned about is the replacement, caller, of the military brass with others who appear to be okay with firing on American citizens, or that would follow orders. And I understand the arguments that it's actually going to be the middle, not the high-ranking officers who would make that decision, or that would actually do the shooting. But still, I'm a little bit disturbed about the fact that you're seeing a replacement of military officers with those that are more political than constitutionally upholding the Constitution.
Yeah, it's a scary situation. I'll definitely stay praying for you guys and love your show. I'll let you guys go. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, my friend. God bless you, man. Good call. Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
All right.
You too. 661-244-9839 if you want to jump in and get on hold. We'll take your call. We're going to go to Jason next. Jason, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Doug and Joe, God bless you so much. How you doing tonight?
Very well, sir.
Good. Well, first of all, with the whole rapture deal, I just want to say this really quick. And the first person that I heard say this, I don't know where it came from, the first person that I heard put this idea out there is Tom Horn. And he said, you know what? I'm pan-trib. God's going to make it all pan out. That's all I'm going to say about the rapture thing. Because, you know, if there's one thing, and you're going to find this out, like Steve said, you know, if there's one thing you're going to bring up within the body of Christ that's going to divide, and divide very, very, in a really vicious manner, it's the rapture. So you guys were brave to do that show. I want to say that first off.
That was one of the adjectives that I was called today. But okay, thanks.
No, yeah, I'm telling you, brother, it was very brave to do that, because that is the one issue within the body of Christ that divides like no other. And we have to understand, if we have the blood of the Lamb covering us, I don't care when you believe it's going to happen. When God wants it to happen, we're gone. That's just the way it is. So on the rapture, that's what I'm going to say. I'll leave it at that. The reason I called you tonight, guys, is because on Sunday's show with Alex+Jones, there was a caller that called in, and he said that he had some documents that were that were hacked by Anonymous, that said that there was a false flag, a chemical false flag, a chemical biological weapon attack, false flag attack, imminent in Syria, weapons supplied by, I believe, Qatar, and it would be blamed on Russia. Doug, have you heard anything like that?
We just mentioned that about 5 minutes ago on this program.
Okay, so that's what you were talking about. Okay, I messaged Joe about it too.
That's it. Yeah.
Very interesting.
And of course we've been saying this for some time now, that this was the plan, and of course, you know, people have said, well, you know, where's your proof? Well, sorry,
you can't give away sources.
Yeah, exactly. So now somebody had hacked into the to the emails and got this exchange between the defense contractor in the UK, and so it should come as no surprise when this happens, and it will happen. When this happens, understand that this is all it's being set up. We're being played. We're being set up. And the people that don't cover this, I don't care if it's Fox News that doesn't cover this, or whoever, if MSNBC decides that this isn't worthy of their time, we are being set up. We're being set up. And this, this is for all the marvels. This is World War III stuff. This is not Afghanistan or Iraq. This is World War III things that are about ready to take place.
No doubt, Doug. No doubt. Do you know anything of a timeline?
No, and I would say that. However, I would say to watch, you know, between now and
March or April.
March, April, in that. Yeah. But you know what? Look, here's what I'm gonna say. Plans change.
Right.
Objectives don't.
And you know what, Doug? I want to say this right now. Your work that you're doing right now is so important, because as the time gets shorter and shorter, you're bringing out information that could push them back and give us more time to evangelize and get more people in the ark of Jesus Christ.
That's what we're trying to do. Jason.
Amen.
And, you know, I mean, that's right.
That's the whole mission, Doug.
If we can, yeah. If we can save one person or two people or five people, or if we can help somebody get to the next battle, then, you know, alive and knowledgeable, with more knowledge, and at least we've done something. And Amen. That's all we're trying to do, is do something.
That's right, Doug. That's right.
Play our positions.
So right, my brother. Well, God bless you, and God bless your son. Joe, you were awesome on 5 Till Midnight with Johnny Seed. Awesome. You and him had a great rapport with Larry Pratt. Great show. And I want to say God bless you guys for every single show you do. God bless Steve Quayle and Greg Evenson, all the watchmen. Lord Jesus, please just hear our prayer. Please come as soon as you can. Maybe nudge the Father and ask him, hey, Dad, things are getting pretty bad down there. You think maybe I could go and save them now? So that's what I'll leave you with, guys. Amen. In the name of Jesus. God bless you guys.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, what a good call. Yeah, Jason, his radio shows on Blog Talk Radio, Revelation News. You can check that out. They got some excellent guests that they've had, and they continue to get good guests on. So check their show out. We're almost at the top of the hour. We'll take more calls when we come back from the commercial break. This story I wanted to hit. Obama pledges to continue a crackdown on irresponsible behavior.
So what does that mean? Okay, now, all right. So I guess I can't be walking down the street with my stogie and my big gulp.
Well, remember, it's irresponsible not to pay your fair share, meaning their new health care law. Even if you don't need health insurance or don't need a hospital visit, you're still going to have to pay a fine or a penalty at the end of the year.
Or a tax.
Being irresponsible. Remember, Debbie Wasserman Schultz said, we're not going to take this irresponsibility anymore. Well, Obama is pledging to continue a crackdown on irresponsible behavior. Here in America, we know the free market is the greatest force for economic progress the world has ever known. But we also know the free market works best for everyone when we have smart common sense rules in place to prevent irresponsible behavior. That's why we passed tough reforms to protect consumers and our financial system from the kind of abuse that nearly brought our economy to its knees. And that's why we've taken steps to end taxpayer-funded bailouts and make sure businesses and individuals who do the right thing aren't undermined by those who don't. But it's not enough to change the law. We also need cops on the beat to enforce the law. And that's why on Thursday, I nominate Mary Jo White to lead the Secretaries and Exchange Commission.
Securities and
Exchange Commission.
Or
and
Secretary. That's probably better. That's okay. That's probably more appropriate, but go on.
To continue leading the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Well, and they say they're going to continue as they have. Mary Jo White has decades of experience cracking down on these white-collar criminals, bringing these mobsters.
Right.
Like
she's from Southwestern
John Corzine, to justice. At the SEC, she will help complete the task of reforming Wall Street and keep going after the irresponsible behavior, so taxpayers don't have to pay the price.
No.
I mean, if that just make stuff up and put it on paper, I guess. Just whatever is in your mind at the time, what he does, or whatever he's handed is what he says. Like you said today, he can't give a speech without a teleprompter.
Yeah, and this is something, folks, remember at the beginning of the program I had mentioned about mind control and Manchurian Candidate, the movie Manchurian Candidate. I just want tonight's program, peppered through tonight's program, I would ask everyone to kind of just open your mind up to MK Ultra Mind Control, because what we're seeing is, I believe,
research.
Well, yes. Start. I guess your homework assignment, if I can ask, if I can put it that way, if you have the time, watch the 1962 version of Manchurian Candidate. And let me just, because the mind control is a topic that we're going to be getting into this week and next week, because it plays such an important role into what we're seeing right now. But think, folks, and when we come back from the break, on the top of the break, I want to just give you a little bit of a nugget of somebody you've probably never heard of, but has an interesting role in history, and you can apply it to certain things today. I'm going to plant the seed of some things that we're going to be talking about, but think about mind control, think about Barack Obama, and think about his inability to talk necessarily without a teleprompter. Think about it. Almost hurts them. It almost hurts them to talk.
Well, yeah, comment in chat said, wouldn't it be interesting if somebody hacked into the teleprompter and changed the words of what he was saying?
Yeah, that would be something, wouldn't it?
That'd be awesome.
I can't remember one of the funny movies, I think, was it Anchorman or something, one of those old funny movies where they did that. But anyway, folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Monday edition, the 28th day of January 2013. We're going to be back right after these messages. Stay with us. And when we come back, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a nugget about a guy that you've probably never heard of.
Good calls and more.
Yes.
If you're stumped, you don't know what kind of gift to give to a friend or a loved one, I'm telling you, you must go to 4physics.com. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. This is your one-stop shopping palace. That's the only way I can put it. I could spend easily an hour on this website. Innovative, fun, educational. There are games, books, weather instruments, unique time-telling devices, jewelry, optical devices, laboratory equipment. Let me give you an example. We all know we can tell time with a sundial. You've seen those advertised. Did you know that you could tell time by the stars? At 4physics.com, you can buy a horologium nocturnum. This was a navigational device used in the 15th century by navigators at night to tell time by the stars. It's beautifully crafted in the shape of a pendant made of bronze and pewter or gold and silver. Absolutely a stunning gift. I would be proud to give it to anyone. You must go to 4physics.com. Even if you're not stumped, that's 4physics. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. It's your one-stop shopping palace. Any problems that you have, I don't know what to get Grandpa, I don't know what to get my loved one, that's unique, you will find it at 4physics.com. Please take my word for it. Go to the website, but give yourself a lot of time because you're not going to want to leave. 4physics.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd urge everyone to go to HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. And on our homepage, we've got a link to Grandland Firearms. I'll tell you what, folks, if you haven't visited Grandland Firearms of British Columbia, either physically, in person, because you're not up in British Columbia, then do it virtually. That's GrandlandFirearms.com. GrandlandFirearms.com. Again, go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, click on the link to Grandland Firearms, and take a look at what they have on their website. Take a look at their gun stock list, what they have in inventory. Check out the book written by Carl Granlund, Treaty Beyond the River, Cougar Hunting on Vancouver Island. When I was down with the flu, I enjoyed some of the stories in that book. Now, I'm not a hunter, but I'll tell you what, the way it's written, it's just a fabulous book. It's a good addition to anyone's library. Carl and Mrs. Granlund have got a tremendous website. Definitely check it out. The survival gear. Right now they've got a special on black men's T-shirts with the deer head, actually, for $19.99. Camo caps for $15 with their logo too. So visit GrandlandFirearms.com and tell them. And while you're there, sign the guest book. Sign the guest book. Make it known that you're there. Tell them that Doug and Joe sent you.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the final hour of this January 28, 2013, Monday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Just a quick announcement. Tomorrow we'll be joined by special guest Larry Grathwohl, infiltrator of the Weather Underground, a group run by Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, the people who launched Obama's political career, and came out and told what their goal was of changing the diehard capitalist mind, and those who did not want to be changed would be murdered in re-education centers. And then Thursday we're going to be joined by author Bill Salas to talk about his new book and what's going on in the Middle East, which should be a very good show.
So before we get into the program further, and it's going to be a great show. Both nights going to be fabulous. By the way, tomorrow night with Larry Grathwohl, always a fun time with Larry.
Yeah,
he's kept a sense of humor too. I mean, after all these years, but
he's been on our show a few times.
Yes.
And it's always been great when he comes on, and always interesting to hear the story that he tells.
Well, before we get into more callers, folks, I want to just draw your attention to a name that you probably, unless you're unless you've really been involved in the JFK assassination, investigating the JFK assassination. 50 years this year. It's kind of hard to believe it's been 50 years for those people who actually remember where they were or what they were doing on that November day in 1963. But I'm going to tell you just a very quick story about a gentleman that you probably never heard of. And frankly, I did not. I heard of this gentleman that the friend of mine had really given me a lot of information. In fact, the friend of mine in the intelligence, associated with the intelligence world, had actually interviewed this guy. And his name is Richard Case Nagel. That's Richard Case Nagel, Nagell. Now, folks, what you know about things today, the shooters, the Aurora shooter, the Batman shooter, the Sandy Hook shooter. Think about the faces and the actions of these shooters. Think about others, these lone shooters, the 19-plus mass shootings since Columbine. Think about the possibilities surrounding, the oddities surrounding these shooters. The way maybe they were under psychiatric care and other things. But let me tell you about Richard Case Nagel. On September 20th, 1963, this was 2 months before John F. Kennedy was assassinated, Richard Case Nagel walked into a bank in El Paso, Texas. He fired 2 shots into the ceiling with a gun, walked back out to his car, sat down, and waited to be arrested. In other words, he made it appear that he was going to rob the bank, or it appeared that he was going to rob the bank. Instead, walked in, put a couple of bullets into a ceiling beam, and then walked back out without saying anything and sat in his car. Subsequently, Nagel would claim he was a double or triple agent of the United States and the KGB, the intelligence services, and that he knew Lee Harvey Oswald and was aware that there was a plot to kill John F. Kennedy, and that he had been ordered to, as well, to kill Oswald to prevent the plot from being carried out. And there were a number of different stories, but he maintained that he had sent a registered letter to the FBI to Director J. Edgar Hoover, warning him of the plot. Now, there was a book about this Richard Case Nagel by author Dick Russell, who interviewed him and corresponded with him. And the book was entitled The Man Who Knew Too Much. Nagel was very, very, very guarded about what he knew in his correspondence. and what have you. But who was Richard Case Nagel? Well, he was a decorated Korean War veteran. He was in a plane crash in 1954, which left him in a coma for weeks because of, why? A head injury. Think about that when you're thinking about other shooters. Anyway, despite his injuries, despite being in a coma, he was granted a top secret clearance with the government and served for a number of years in counterintelligence in the Army. Once again, I ask you to think about the shooters that we've seen in the past 19 times. What was up with Nagel's strange behavior? Was it a sign of brain damage or psychological difficulties? Or was what was going on? Why would a guy walk into a bank and put a couple of bullets into the ceiling, walk to his car and wait to be arrested?
Do you remember we had on Joe from Realist News the second time where he talked about a TV show he watched where they hypnotized 6 people and the 5 people were broken out of their hypnotism when told they were going into a hot tub that was a cold water, and the one who didn't, they used and set up a mock shooting, and the guy followed through with the shooting after being unhypnotized. He was traumatized and thought he killed someone. They had to bring that guy in and say he was an actor.
Right.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring this, the case of Richard Case Nagel up is in the context of what we're seeing with these mass shootings and MK Ultra. Now, the Nagel story is one of the truly the oddest parts of the JFK assassination stories. And although there were many inconsistencies, he had claimed that he did this because he knew. And I was speaking with my friend in the intelligence industry who interviewed this man. He had claimed to do this because he knew that he was being set up. He was being set up and would be blamed for the assassination of JFK. It's interesting, by the way, because the Assassinations Record Review Board, which was actually looking into his claims, they sent a registered letter to Richard Case Nagel on October 31st, 1995. One day after the letter was mailed, Nagel was found dead in his apartment, the victim of an apparent heart attack. It's rather interesting timing, I would say. But when you look at the case of Richard Case Nagel, you are left with the feeling that this man is a guy who had suffered a head injury, was probably under psychiatric and or physical, medical care for a brain injury, was involved in the military or had connections to the military even after his leaving the military. And there are certain similarities here that I think one can draw between Richard Case Nagel and many of the mass shooters. The point I'm trying to make is I'm not trying to make a case tonight with anything other than I would ask everyone to start looking, to start opening their mind to the fact that what we're seeing today is a case with these mass shooters. Could very well be a case of, Manchurian candidates, if you will. This is something that I think begs an issue that begs investigation, that needs to be investigated. Because how many times are we going to hear, like, for example, the Martin Luther King shooter, James Earl Ray, psychologically being treated psychologically, as was how many shooters of late. And the other, Sirhan, for example. Remember his story about the woman in the polka-dotted dress and not being able to remember anything. See, the only reason I'm bringing this up is because there is so much here there is so much to our findings with respect to the mass shootings, and the word brain, the label brainwashing by Holder, that we're going to have to brainwash people against weapons. There is a plot, and people, I believe this.
It's already been done.
Conspiracy.
It's already been done.
Right. But see, people have got to understand, I believe part of winning or part of prevailing, at least to the extent that we can, is understanding what's going on. And what's going on, I believe, is a massive mind control operation.
When I have Laura, my wife, telling me she hearing at work from different people on different units saying the same thing, you don't need 10 bullets to kill a deer. I mean, you know.
It's almost like these mantras. That's right. You don't need 10 bullets. It's almost on cue where people will come out and will say things. It's almost as if we are being programmed. It's almost as if the shooters in these various. No one's talking about this. No one's talking about the psychological aspects of the shooters. Oh, sure, they mentioned, well, this guy's mental, a mental case. But is it really a mental case, or is there something more? Is it something more, perhaps something more nefarious, where there is a government type of operation that involves these people? And this is something that we're going to get into. So I'm just trying to put the listeners into, you folks into this area to open up your mind and to take a look at these different things. Not establishing anything or not hitting anything specific tonight. Just kind of open your mind up and start thinking and start looking at the bigger picture, because this is a huge, and I mean a very huge and a very intense conversation. Yeah, that once you start connecting the dots, I think you're going to see, you're going to say, holy cow, it's right in front of us. And it's been going on not for 5 years, but for 50 years.
And maybe through understanding the way it works, we can help snap other people out of it, at least the soft type, the TV programming. And
that's right.
And brainwashing. We're going to go to the phones. We're going to go to area code 413 first. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Nefarious, to say the least, Doug.
Pardon me?
Can you hear me? I said nefarious.
Yes, I'm sorry.
To say the least. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said, ma'am.
Oh, I just said nefarious is a good word. You were saying that, how nefarious. But the reason I called, I just wanted to say that I re-listened to last night's program 2 times. It was such a wonderful program, and I just felt so blessed by Pastor David Langford and Steve Quayle and the way that you two put on the show. I'm convicted now. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys a check and break out a donation to you, because it really was a blessing last night.
Well, ma'am, we didn't do that for any type of.
No, I just wanted to.
Thank you.
I just wanted to, and Steve Quayle, his prayer was so. I felt it personally. It was a very powerful prayer that he broke into last night, and Pastor Langford was just these. I've always gone with this biblical train of thought, and it was really nice to hear 3 hours of that. It was exactly what I needed to hear, and so I listened to it 2 more times.
Well, Pastor Langford is such a gifted man in terms of his ability to communicate. And I'll tell you, talk about knowing Scripture. Man.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, I couldn't write fast. I couldn't write fast enough.
Did you learn something? Did you learn things last night, Doug? Because it seemed like you were really kind of, when he was talking about Michael the Archangel having a war with, you know, the dragon and then basically throwing Satan to the earth. He was just, it was so simply put, and it's such a complicated part of Scripture, really. But he put it in such good terms, and then the only thing, when he was talking about that, the four winds get released at that time too, biblically, from a biblical perspective. The four winds are released at that point. And the four winds represent the political, the economic, because he was talking about commerce, so it was political, economic, and he didn't mention educational systems, and also the religious systems are all going to be basically infiltrated by the winds, the evil that comes and swoops over us. And that's exactly what's happening right now. The educational system is a mess with, it's all tangled up too.
Yeah, you have the education system that is indoctrinating now generations of children with their anti-American, anti-Christian curriculum. You have the colleges, which are even worse, and then you have the people who, watch TV and get their information from these news sources that are set up in order to give you disinformation and to change the way you believe things, change your mindset, change how people act and behave, and that's why it's all set up the way it is. If you can't get out of the trap, you never will, and people who are in it don't even know that they're in it.
It's just like Jason said earlier. I thought to myself, I don't really need to call because Jason basically, he said it, and he thanked you also. But, you guys are so pertinent, and the information you're putting out is right now, it's so important that little pieces of the puzzle are coming together in different ways quickly for a lot of people. Today I heard that another piece of this, you had the guest V on last week with Steve Quill, and he was talking about the derivatives, and it is starting to crack. Today, something major happened in a bank in Italy, and the Canadian, 5 Canadian banks, I think, were downgraded. Their credits were downgraded today. Did you hear that?
Oh, yeah. I heard something. Yes, but I don't know the details of it. I just caught the tail end of a audio report on that. So, isn't it amazing that that the information that he provided was darn accurate.
It was accurate. It was timely because it's happening. It's starting to happen now, and I've heard for a year now that once the derivatives start to crack, that's when things are going to speed up. And as far as like you were talking earlier about the stock market and whether that's a true barometer, and he said it last week, it's not, because it's algorithms. It's everybody's got their money out of this. Well, a lot of people. The volume on the stock market trading right now is very low in comparison to previous decades. So it's not an accurate barometer of anything, really. It's all run by algorithms, robots, basically, that are controlling the large pension funds of people who just won't get out of the market because they're too blind to see what's going on. At least that's my take on it. You know, I wouldn't judge our economic situation by the stock market any more than I desire to burn a $20 bill or a $1,000 bill. I go to the supermarket and my grandson's jar of Nutella costs $8.50 now, and that's how I judge how things are going.
You know something? It's interesting you bring the Nutella up because, and I'm the same way. If I go into a grocery store, I kind of look at either milk. Well, milk only sometimes, but that's controlled. But peanut butter, Nutella, things like that.
Yeah.
And you look at the sizes too. My goodness.
He goes
people
through
can't
2 jars a
understand
week,
that
so we're talking about $20 to feed him, Nutella sandwiches in a week. That's 2 jars of Nutella for $20. I mean, it must hit everybody when they go to the grocery store. Everybody knows it. Everyone sees what's going on in the economy. The government's not putting anything over on us. But anyway, I don't want to go on a little rant here. I really called to thank you, and I'm going to be physically mailing a check to you. So that'll be what's going on Friday. Okay. And I'll get off the phone now.
Okay. All right, man. Thank you much, and thank you so much. But God bless you. Joe, Pastor Langford had really touched a lot of people.
Yeah, yes, he did.
He really has touched.
And I want to get him back on to talk about other scriptural issues. And I know we will have him back on.
Yeah.
But hopefully we can get him on soon in the next couple of weeks.
And the important thing is, the caller asked me if I learned anything, and I think the important thing is what I learned is, here's what I learned from last night. I learned that I need to study the Bible more. That's what I learned. Because
good thing.
I mean, really, when it comes right down to it.
So I can tell you that every day for weeks, but
no.
Pastor Langford says that you listen.
Well, of course, because you're my son, and I don't take instructions. No, it's amazing how much more there is in the Bible than you think there is, and it's just important for you really to understand, for people to really of all the books that we should have in our library and study, that's it. But that's the one, the Bible.
All right, we're going to go to another call. We're going to go to Pierre. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, Doug. Hey, Joe. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Pierre. We are awaiting your sit rep, your situation report. What's up?
Situation report. You guys were touching on a lot of things. I just got in from work today, maybe about an hour ago, so I didn't really touch on to the whole gist of what was going on. I heard about mind control and things with Israel, so we're gonna have to probably just do tit for tat. I'll touch on something and you hit me on something so I can catch up onto what you guys were talking about. But were you guys aware that Obama had refused to send aid, military-grade aid, to the Muslim Brotherhood-ran country of Egypt? And what that entails was Egypt will be getting brand spanking new F-16 Falcons, fly-by-wire Falcons, very, very good fighters, very, 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 very awesome all-weather air superiority, air-ground interceptors. He
pushed it through $1 billion taxpayer funded.
And he gave them 200 M1 Abrams main battle tanks. That's got to sink in for a moment for a lot of people if they understand where I'm going, where I'm going at. If you guys don't, let's put it to you this way. Israel has a pretty top-notch Air Force. Bottom line, they do. And they have pretty good armored units with their Merkava main battle tanks. We also know, though, now that since Egypt is being run by the Muslim Brotherhood, that the ties that Israel and Egypt had once shared under Mubarak's regime is pretty much gone the way of the dinosaur. It's just a question of when things are going to light up between those two countries. And maybe the Brotherhood just doesn't feel that they're waiting to build up what they need in terms of assets and military resources before they can execute whatever it is they're going to do against Israel. And let me tell you something. Falcons and M1 Abrams in the right hands, that is a deadly combination. I mean, extremely deadly. I've seen Abrams in actions, and I know what Falcons can do. I'm not down with this at all. And to me, it's just like, essentially, Obama's just saying, screw you, Israel. I'm going to get this to them. And if they attack you with it, well, tough, deal with it. And what makes that even ironic is that we still have boots on the ground in Israel, because we have we've been helping them with their Iron Domes, but we have Patriot systems out there too that are, I believe, crewed by our forces out there. So that's just a very nasty situation all around with that. On to the issue of mind control, Doug, you are absolutely on the mark with that. For a lot of you that are hearing me talk about this, mind control is very real. It's not a joke. It's not a game. It's not a video game. If anything, by playing those games, and you see like storylines, say like what Call of Duty or so, and you see how people get, like Black Ops was the perfect example of showing you what happens to an individual who gets mind controlled. It can happen. There are Manchurian candidates. These people, these things are very real. MK Ultra is just a tip of it, but it's the most prolific.
Right.
Got caught and got exposed. It's like, it's almost. I'll put it to you this way: MK Ultra is like, it would be compared to catching a spouse having an affair. The only reason why the spouse apologizes is because he or she got caught, not because they did what they did. And that's what happened with the CIA in regards to MK Ultra. And you have to realize, folks, that there's other sub-projects that are involved here. I'm not talking about anything that is, for the record here, classified or in violation of national security protocols. I am not doing that at all, because anyone who knows anything about the Central Intelligence Agency knows that they do things, plans within plans within plans. In a lot of respects, I have the utmost respect for that agency. However, I do not agree with the corruption that has run rampant with it. I mean, they were actually a very effective force at one point, and they were very, very good. And they just went south from there. And you still got good people that are in here.
Hold on. Let me stop you there for a second, because this you're reminding me of something here. Folks, remember, I don't know how many people have listened to the program we did with Russ Dizdar and Steve Quayle, both. But Russ talked about people becoming activated. Now, I'm not sure that was the word he used, but all of a sudden, becoming active or activated, if you will, as part of the mind control that's been going on. So if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to the Russ Dizdar program that he did, that plays into what we're talking about. But I'm sorry, Pierre, to take your time. Go ahead and continue. But you're right. The MK Ultra is just one aspect that was revealed by the Church Commission back in the mid-'70s. But yes, go on.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. Folks, the way sleeper cells work is that you have people who, you have one or two different kinds of operatives. You got those that are willing subjects to be tested, and you got those that are unwitting. And when it comes to sleeper units, they already know what their mission profiles are. They know exactly what it is that they have to do in detail. They then become inundated in the culture that they have to penetrate. And sometimes these sleeper cells are in for years. We're not talking months. We're not talking hours. These cells are here for years. Okay? They are as they live the false life that they have. In some respects, they don't even know the other real side of them, because it's been suppressed through very stringent, very, very well-regulated mind control. And so it could come through a form of a phone call, a text message, maybe it's a certain chime, or it could be something visual that you see on TV, or it could be an email or something, and then bam, the sleeping personality that's within him, that is the operative, goes into high gear. And then there's no stopping them then, because you see, in intelligence, of course, you could send someone from counterintelligence to go find the intelligence operative, but when it comes to someone that's in a sleeper cell, you're not going to know until it's too late. And even then, you might not even know who they are because they've already conducted their mission and they did what they had to do. These people, let's get this aspect of them correct. These aren't zealots. They're not like, say, jihadists that just want to go and blow themselves up and Allahu Akbar. These are people who really do believe that what they're doing is right for their country. And to stop the enemy from doing whatever it is that the enemy is going to do to them. But see, they're only told this by their superiors. That's just the political and military aspects of sleeper units. But once
now think about the shooters. Okay, for example, the Batman shooter. Imagine all of a sudden finding yourself in the theater holding a gun, thinking that, or in the theater not holding any gun, but having just shot people, and thinking that you were part of a play, or not knowing what happened. Think about it that way too, not just necessarily as a mentally somebody thinking that they were doing good for their country, but somebody thinking, or somebody not knowing what they did,
exactly,
or why they did it.
Then if we go that case, Doug, then what we could say is then the person's really not a sleeper. Then we can actually say there is a psychological aspect to this, that the person literally does have a split personality disorder, and that personality has planned things all on its own without the knowledge of the other personality. That's not unheard of thing, but it's what is the word I'm looking for? Either a rare or an uncommon thing where someone is just Johnny or Jane solo, having no idea that the other part of them is doing all this. And then if they wake up in the morning with bruises on them, don't even know what happened and why they're so sore, they won't know, but the other half of them that's suppressed will come out on its own. Generally, if it's on TV, folks, and you've seen movies on it, you laugh at it and say, that can't be real, you better think it is real because it can happen. A perfectly good example of something like that was one of my favorite shows I loved was Battlestar Galactica, the remaking of the series. And in it was Lieutenant Valerie, played by Grace Park, and her character was a Cylon. She had no idea who and what she was in terms of that. All she knew was she was waking up either drenched wet or she had a gun in her hand, and she's trying to figure out what's going on, and she had no idea until it finally dawned on her, and she's doing all this sabotage on board the Galactica, and then she just finally flips. It happens. This is how some people can't take their programming. I've never met anyone like this. I will never openly say I participate in such things because I know I haven't. But I do know for a fact such individuals do exist. And it's a very real thing. It's a very, very scary thing. What countermeasures can anyone take about it? Obviously, if you know someone that's close to you, you know their behavioral patterns, hey, there you go. They're all right. But if they start doing things that are a bit odd, things that are not right, take note of it, and then you may have to run with that. I hate to say it, and I know it sounds paranoid, folks, but that's real. Because how many times have we heard about people who have been shooting like Klebold and Harris, who did Columbine, and these other people were saying, and other shooters, he didn't strike me as the kind of person that would do that. He was always so nice and so friendly. I would never have thought he did that. Ted Bundy was like that, folks. Coolest guy in the world. Gentle as a lamb. At night, dude was Godzilla and just killing people left and right. But no one knew because he had such a friendly face and he was so nice. Does this mean that what I'm saying is that everyone in the public needs to be getting afraid and just, oh my God, I don't know who's who and what's what? No. Let me be the first person on the air telling millions of people who are hearing my voice, don't be paranoid with it. Because one, there's nothing you can do about it. Really.
No.
And two,
people have to, and Pierre, no, and the reason I bring this up is because people have to understand, and I think it's important for people to understand, that these exist, and if you look at some of the commonalities of the recent shooters, the Sandy Hook shooter, the Aurora shooter, look at the ties that bind, the psychological treatment, the psychiatric treatment, the head injury perhaps, and so on and so on. There are certain elements here that are common, and it's just to make you aware. So the next time a mass shooting happens, pay attention to this. Pay attention to this. That's why I brought this up. Pay attention to this.
I agree with you. Then if that's the case, then we need to go as intelligent people who investigate these things independently and try to find out the truth on stuff. It's no different than trying to find a money trail. The only thing here is you got to find out who did the treatment. And then from there you have to investigate that individual and see how far back they go. Because you see nowadays you can't hide the truth anymore because everything's all readily made available either to people who open their mouths and talk, or you could find it online. Misinformation and disinformation can only go so far. But like with anything, folks, in terms of such things, you've got to remember about the one outstanding characteristic about a lie is that there will always be a kernel of truth in that lie. And if you hear it, you need to use discernment to figure out what it is. And then you can unravel it from there. And that's how I look at it. That's how you could track things down, at least in terms of that, so you can find out who did what. But mind control is mind control. I don't watch TV. I don't care to. Why? Because there's subliminal messages that are always being transmitted to your TVs, whether they're regular analog or smart TVs. Think about it, folks. You see commercials. It may blip for a nanosecond. Something just went right up with it, just like how it was in the movie with Roddy Piper, They Come or something like that, and it says obey or whatever. But it's there. Alex+Jones talk about it. It's there. It's not a game, folks. It is very, 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 very real.
In 1965, Pierre, 1965, if you went to the movies, there was one frame, drink Coca-Cola, put in. You know, the film goes at 30 frames per second. So if you're watching a regular motion picture type thing, there's 30 frames in every second. One frame, somebody they put in drink Coca-Cola into the frame, and they calculated that 65% of the people who saw that actually went and at that point got up and went and got Coca-Cola. All right, now that's called subliminal messaging, and it has since been outlawed. But think about that. It appears it's the frame. You cannot. It goes too fast for you to be able to see it consciously, but it registers within your subconscious. That's just one aspect, and of course that's against the law. But you get where I'm going with that. You know, and that the success rate of 65% of the people who saw that. Then, of course, people were watching, who were actually watching the film as opposed to looking at their person next to them or looking at something else at the time. Pretty impressive. But go on, Pierre. I'm sorry.
No. It's your show. You got to say what you got to say, get your point across. But I think you and Joe and everyone who's in the chat room and the millions of people that are hearing me will understand what I'm about to say here. What's real and what's not isn't always easy to figure out. So to that end, try to take the things that you hear kind of like with a grain of salt mixed with some really decent wisdom, because you never know when you're really getting played. Discernment has to be used almost like 24/7, which then goes right back to the basics of spirituality with God. You better get right with yourselves. Get yourselves right with God. Get yourselves right with Jesus. Get yourselves right with the Holy Spirit. Get yourselves right, period. And then discernment won't be such a difficult thing to acquire. It won't be a difficult thing for you to get bit by bit by bit. It will become something like a handshake. It'll be as good as you sleep and wake up and you can smell the air, the air that you breathe. It'll become normal. But until that time comes, deception will be played. Misinformation, misdirection will happen. It's a sad thing. And look at the age that we live in, folks. Bottom line is, and I was saying this in the chat room earlier, I guess it was some question about civil war and kind of like when is it going to happen and what have you. I'm going to just simply say we're in it now, folks. We are in the Civil War. We are in the Revolutionary War. And here's how I view it. And it's very simple, and I will not take any more time with this. This is a war of words, of legislation, all of smoke and mirrors designed to delay us from taking the actions that we need, while at the same time it permits the enemy to concoct whatever short-term plans they can make, because, see, at the time, everything's shredding on their end. People are seeing the truth. They can't handle that, so they have to ramp this up as fast as they can. That's why they've been slipping so much. And maybe some cases that it looked like they slipped, it was designed to be that way, to deflect, to cause more questionings and more debunking and all that kind of stuff. We are not the lunatic fringe people, and they know this. They know this. This is all smoke and mirrors. At some point, the balloon is going to go up, whether it's here in the continent of the United States, over in the disputed island territories between Japan and China, or with India and Pakistan, considering that India today tested a nuclear-capable medium-range ballistic missile, or the Middle East, which is a complete powder keg in and of itself. This is all going to go down at some point. And continue doing what you all know what you need to do. You know, get your food, get your water, get your supplies, get your ammo, get your hardware. You know, get what you need. Watch what's going on in the markets. It's already happening. 114, I think it's either 14 billion or 114 billion already happened in terms of a bank run where people are pulling their money out, as the reports are coming from Wells Fargo and Bank of America. I mean, these are things that were talked about by talked about by Gerald Celente, Max Kaiser, and so forth. Silver is about to go the way of the dinosaur in terms of the silver mint, because it's already happened here in America. And now Canada is dropping down in terms of limiting, you know, they can reduce in silver. It's all coming to a head in Europe.
Meaning that silver would be a good buy right now.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get any more. It doesn't get any more in your face physical thing. For the love of God, folks, get what you can, do what you can. But here's the key, like I've always said before, and I will leave you all with this: don't lose your head, because the panic is coming, because the collapse is coming, because all kinds of evil suffering not give you the right as an individual who's into God or who's into the Constitution or who's just into freedom and liberty. It does not give you the right to go insane and lose your head. It doesn't, because you make a difference into what has come. So with that, I'm going to leave you all with that. Don't lose your head. And that's it.
Very good.
Thanks for the call.
Very good.
You have a good night.
You too.
God
Thanks
bless.
for letting me be on.
All right, man. And Joe, look, that's what we are here for. Look, even when the Civil War, shooting Civil War, active in the streets Civil War, I do have a feeling, based on information, the internet's still going to be up. There's still going to be communications. It's not going to be a Mad Max scenario. It's going to be tough. And when Pierre says don't lose your head, hopefully we will be able to continue doing what we're doing and helping you not lose your head.
Right, and that's what the word points to. When you have foundation in Jesus Christ, you will not lose your head if you're living in faith and obedience.
That's
That's
right.
what it comes down to.
Yeah, but I don't believe, like I said, based on everything I've heard, I don't believe that you're going to have this Mad Max scenario. It's going to be tough. It's good. You're going to have some semblance of normalcy where there will be communications such as radio programs on the internet. Certainly, you may not have. You're going to have sporadic outages and such, but I do believe you will have the ability to tune in, if not all the time. There will be openings, and we're going to be here helping to guide and to make sure that we can help in real time, if that makes sense. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to take.
I'm looking at you there with the.
Let's say. All right, we're going to go to I think Donna real quick, and we'll try to fit one more in after that.
Oh, it's gone fast. Donna.
Did I say that right? Is it Donna?
Donna, are you there?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I didn't hear my name called. I wanted to ask about HR 4872 in the healthcare bill. There was some talk requiring the RFID chips to be implanted. Is that true?
Right.
So that is true.
Wow. Well,
I'm trying to get confirmation on this.
Boy, you know what, folks? I don't know. How's that? I don't know. Do you know, Joe? I mean, I don't. See, we've heard things about that, but then I don't know. That's the best we can do. How's that for an affirmative, strong answer?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, at least we're honest. Here's what we're doing. We're trying to get clarification as to what the RFID aspect of the healthcare legislation means precisely. We've probably asked 4 different sources and got 4 different answers, and none of which are even close to one another. So, we're still searching for that.
Okay, I have a little rant. As far as discernment goes, I was watching television, which I don't watch very often. There's a Geico commercial, and I had mentioned this to my aunt. It offended me. I was watching it, and it's a pig and a lady in a car, and she's coming on to this pig. He's a pig, and I don't know about you or anybody out there listening. They may think I'm nuts, but I thought that was the most disgusting commercial I've seen. A woman coming on to a pig. Of course, he goes on his little phone, and she looks very disappointed, but the crux or what I saw, the crux of the commercial or the mind part of it or the desensitization, whatever word you want to give it, was disgusting. And that's all I have to say about that.
Geico, that's a pretty interesting. Geico is the government employees insurance company. It's interesting there, and also it's interesting that this little green lizard, not the pig, but the lizard now, has got this British accent. There are a lot of interesting things when it comes to Geico, but yes, I agree in your rant. I saw that commercial. What's that all about?
It was sexual. I'm sorry. Her whole body language, everything. I'm watching that going, I'm not crazy. I know what I'm looking at, and I thought, this is disgusting. Sorry, but that was my rant. It was just disgusting.
No, that's fine. It's fine, man. Joe likes that. No, right. Actually, though, no, seriously, isn't it funny, Donna, that the commercials and the marketing is done in such a demeaning manner? It's demeaning to people, and it's almost like we are children.
Not to mention it desensitizes the moral issue, the moral fabric. We've got don't get me started. the whole homosexuality issue with the president and the degradation of marriage, not to mention, you know how I feel about the abortion issue. I've already ranted about that. I mean, and then I see this commercial, and I just told my aunt, I said, it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse. You know, just the moral fabric of that. It seems like a simple, tiny commercial, and people, oh, you're making a big deal, but it desensitizes the moral fabric of somebody without them even realizing it in a mind control sense. And then I was watching something about Tesla. Oh, it had to do with heart, but it was all about Tesla, and they were experimenting with, and I don't know if this is true, so I'll rely on your expertise, but apparently they were doing some sort of radio waves type of experiments that control people's emotions. And so getting into mind control, I mean, is there a question that these radio frequencies that they could play with, because there's technology we don't know about, that could actually control mass, you know, populations on a level, you know, like aimed at a city, whatever, make people go wacko, I don't know. If like I said to somebody, if you have a propensity, like in my case, I get depressed, I have a propensity to overeat. But, you know, some people, when they get depressed, may have a propensity in their personality to become violent. You know, you don't know. Everybody's issues are different. So certain frequencies, if they make people go wacky or whatever, they could do different things based on who they are, I guess.
You know, Donna, you mentioned something. It's interesting because there's something called monarch programming, like the monarch butterfly. And without getting into like a huge, deep informational thing about this, measuring brain waves, there are levels of this monarch programming, this mind control programming, that identify a person's functions and are named after brain waves associated with them. For example, when you're normally awake and conscious and alert, there's a beta brainwave, which is between 14 and 30 hertz. And then if you are in a deep dreamless sleep, it's a delta brainwave, which is 1 to 3 hertz. So to answer your question, yes, and there are things within these brainwaves, the programming that actually control personality. And it's an amazing thing. For example, the beta brainwaves, it's like sexual programming area, and then delta is like the killer programming, and so there are yes. To answer your question, yes, without getting into like a huge explanation.
That's exactly the stuff I was studying, and I went, wow. There is so much.
Yes.
The company, I guess Raytheon ended up buying the company out eventually. The company that had, when I went through this long, drawn-out thing, it was ended up at the very end. Raytheon ended up, and in the hands of that particular corporation, I have no doubt that they have technology that we probably don't even know about.
Oh, that's so true, Donna. That's so
and
true.
So getting into the idea of some sort of civil war, if the army actually turned on the American people, I really don't. We really do have to get right with God and be protected and discernment. And I can say that I would have probably never caught that commercial had I not been a Christian, had I not been right with God 2 years ago. That commercial would have went by me. I would have never even caught it. But because I feel very strongly a follower of Jesus Christ in the Lord, I looked at that commercial, instantly figured it out right away. So I think when you're right with God, and I think when you accept the Lord Jesus Christ, and you have that in you, I think that's where we really, really, really have to put our faith in God, because there's no way we could take on American. We're going to need that.
No.
And the show last night, guys, was great. Thank you.
Well,
God bless both of you.
We're up against the end of the show, and God bless you as well. Thanks for calling. Caller 111 will take your call first on the next show. I'm sorry we didn't get to you the last one on the hook, and we're out of time.
We're out of
I want
time.
to thank each and every one of you for listening tonight. Tomorrow we'll have Larry Grathwold on at the beginning of the show. I'm not sure how long he's going to stay. Could stay for the whole show. Either way, we'll be covering topical things that are going on. Obama, his history, what he's doing, and what's planned. Thanks for joining us tonight. God bless each and every one of you. We'll see you tomorrow.